Hello and welcome to the brand new season of the
Higgledy podcast.
Who was that?
That was Darth Vader.
Well done, you recognized it. If you don't know why that's an internal joke, it's because it was on the last podcast that I fucked up. Watch the last video. I fucked it up royally. It was like a 3-hour podcast. We lost it all because Alex couldn't be heard. I'm Peter, that's Alex. This time, I can see that we can both be heard, so it's all good. We're not going to fuck it up this time. Unless we do.
Me.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see at the end of it, I guess, or in 2 days' time when you go to edit it.
Yeah. If you don't know what this podcast is, we're a bunch of nerds. We talk about nerd stuff. We usually talk about like the news, but nerdy news. Sometimes we talk about actual news, but normally we don't because actual news is incredibly depressing. Hey, Alex, did you hear who the new prime minister is going to be?
No, because I really don't care. They're just as awful as each other.
Yep, correct. But either way, it's still depressing to hear that a new prime minister has been confirmed. That nothing else was going to happen, but like still hearing who's been announced was just like, yay. Liz Truss, if you're wondering, who is the better of the two by a tiny amount, just because Rishi Sunak did say that he wanted to create re-education camps.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, literal Nazi versus just a incompetent conservative.
Yeah.
Anyways, so yeah, we do sometimes get political. We got political literally 2 minutes in. You're welcome.
Yep.
If you like this...
I mean, it wasn't too bad, though, you know? It's kind of a big deal for... Well, no, let's be honest, it really isn't.
It's a big deal for the Brits just because, yet again, we're stuck with another Tory Prime Minister rather than it going to general election. Please let it go to general election soon because we don't want the Tories in power anymore. I mean, we probably do because the nation's stupid, but hopefully enough people don't want the Tories in power. Anyways, let's stop being political. Point is, our country's fucked. So are most countries these days. The world's gone to shit. But media and nerd shit isn't always gone to shit. And that's what we're here to talk about today, baby. You like that segue?
I mean, yeah, I would also say that a lot of media recently has gone to shit, especially if you look at stuff like Warner Bros.
Which we talked about in depth on the Lost episode from last week.
Yep. So, yeah, it's not always sunshine and lollipops, but... You know, that's what we're here to talk about also. We talk about everything that crosses our minds.
You know what is sunshine, lollipops, rainbows disappear, something, something. I can't remember what the rest of the lyrics are. It's the version of that song which is just Count Dooku singing that song and it's just clips of Christopher Lee saying the different words of the song. That's pretty great.
I made that.
Did you? Did you?
I did. Yeah.
See, I know I'd seen it before, and
Yeah.
I just thought I was just like in my memory, it's just like, oh, that's a classic internet meme. Alex made that video. Where can people find it, or is it not online? Is it just in the Discord or something?
I don't know. I made it on my personal account.
Wasn't that your one where you like rated whether a piece of media was good or not?
So I made it before I made that channel. And then when I made that channel, I basically deleted it off of the other one and reformatted it for that new channel.
Got it.
Yeah. If
Alex can find the link, it'll be in the description below. Otherwise, it's an amazing video that the rest of the internet will never see. So, anyways, if you like this video, please do actually like it. It really helps. You can also subscribe. You can also comment below, and you can share it. But you can't favorite it, even though my dumb brain normally thinks you can. I fucking nailed it. Look at me being.
I mean, to be fair, liking is basically favoriting it because it adds it to your liked playlist.
Yeah, but I've always found that annoying because like I used to. I don't know whether YouTube changed it automatically going into your liked playlist, but I used to have a playlist of videos that were like basically my watch later, which they've now moved where watch later is. But you have to go add to watch later. So like my liked used to just be like things that I wanted to go back to watch or whatever, or like videos that I like genuinely really liked. And now, no offense to them, I do genuinely like all their videos, but normally I don't bother to like videos on YouTube. It's just Mr. Sunday Movies for like the last 2 years, because they always just ask so nicely. They just ask so nicely, those boys. So I go, okay,
Yeah.
I like.
I wish I was just disconnected, because like every time, like there's quite a few videos that I want to like, but I know it's automatically going to be put into a playlist, and so it just dissuades me from liking it, because I'm like, I don't want to handle a playlist.
Exactly. But also, I never visit my liked playlist, so maybe I should stop complaining.
Yeah, true.
Old man shouts at cloud energy. Anyways, shall we start with the Warhammer Darktide? Warhammer 40,000 Darktide?
Yeah.
It's a new game being made by the developers of Vermintide, I believe. I believe it's the same developers. It's Warhammer, and it's a 4-player co-op shooter. So I'm assuming it's the same team, but I don't know for certain. So I might be talking out my ass. And they showed off a new trailer, which at Gamescom, which recently happened, which included some customization stuff. And I gotta say, looks pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it, it reminds me of pretty much all the other sort of like co-op games like it, like Vermintide and
Left 4 Dead and
Left 4 Dead, all the others. Like I generally like those types of games, or Killing Floor. I usually, enjoy them. Get into a lobby with a few friends. It can be a bit of a blast. I don't think they ever really last that long. I feel like they're definitely one of those types of games where
Left 4 Dead 2 is still quite played today.
No, I mean, like, it's still played, but like, at least personally and from experience with friends, like, usually with those games, it's not one that you stick with. It's one that you just go back to, like, every now and again.
But
like,
I would also
you may play for it. You might play it for a few days and then just sort of leave it. And
in those games' defense, though, I would say that says a lot more about our friends group than it says about anything else. Because I literally have a rule these days, which is that if you or Tommy says, "Dude, you got to play this game. We're going to be playing it together," I go, "Okay, I'm going to wait 2 weeks, and if they're still playing it, then I'll buy it." So
that's not a bad rule. I used to try and follow that rule, but then I always just gave into peer pressure anyway. So
I'm lucky that I always have the excuse that I'm busy with role-playing stuff. So I can just say, no, not doing it. And then 2 weeks later, I could be tempted. I have been tempted before the 2 weeks is up. But there have been some games that have lasted a long time with us. There's like Hunt Showdown lasted quite a few months. You have, obviously, you guys are playing a lot of Teamfight Tactics still, unless you're not playing that anymore.
I am. I play that pretty consistently. Tom doesn't.
But for a good chunk of time, he was also playing it with you.
Yeah.
And then we played Warhammer for a decent amount of time.
Yeah. I mean, we played it long enough to get a server and keep it going for a bit. So
yeah, you were a cunt in that game just because you were really good at it, and it was really annoying to fight against you. Like, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I've gone back to it a couple of times since we played, and I'm fucking shit now. Like, it sucks. I was trying to play it with a couple of other friends, and I was just getting so frustrated because I was like, why am I no longer good at this game? Like, I remember just trashing everyone, and then I go into like a new game, and I just can't even score a hit on anyone. It was tragic.
So when we first started playing Mordhau, we were all like a pretty similar level because we all started at the same time. And we kind of increased in level at a pretty kind of consistent rate where, like, it was you, me, and Tommy playing pretty frequently. Occasionally we'd have, like, Callum join us and what have you. And, it'd be 1v1s, and it would be pretty even spread who could beat who. And I think you discovered the Warhammer and everything changed. And even when Tommy... That was it. And then me and Tommy tried to use... Me and Tommy tried to use the same weapon against you and just couldn't. And just, like, from that point on, it was just like... let's play like dual mode in like a public server with loads of people so that we don't have to just fight Alex.
Yeah, I feel like my in anime terms, my potential increased exponentially while playing that game. And like, once I started to get good with them all, because it was such a slow weapon, and I'd learned like just the basic techniques with that.
Hmm.
Whenever I switched to like a faster weapon, I was just pretty much equally as good because I just spent so much time like playing with such a difficult weapon to use.
Which, I don't know if this is true, this is a story I was told in primary school, but it might be true, is the Brazilian national football team's theory to training, which is supposedly, according to the story I was told in primary school by a teacher, which might be complete bullshit, they practice with a football about that size, so that when they go to a normal size football, they're like, this is so much easier to hit because it's bigger. So,
There is some method to it then.
yeah. Also, I think I still have this. I think it's this one.
Dodge this, you bastard!
Yes,
Nice.
so after Alex got good at that game, I basically just became a meme player whenever I was playing with him, where I'd just be like on the loot going, "Dodge this, you bastard," and then just throwing shit at people. So yeah, he
To be
ruined
fair,
that game for us, is what I'm saying.
To be fair, I think we all became meme players by the end of it. I mean, like, we were all just creating these ridiculous loadouts. Like, I had the Gulag Fodder class, which was just using a pitchfork and a hammer and sickle. I
My
also had my Robin Hood.
My favorite memory from that game was, and I don't think you were there for it, unfortunately. I think Tommy might have been there for some of it, or maybe all of it. But basically, we were playing that game mode where it's just waves of enemies, and you just got to survive. And the longer you survive, the more like rewards you get and whatever. And we were playing. Tommy died like, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 minutes in or whatever. We were playing with just a random guy, well, a bunch of random people, but me and this one random guy were the last two left at this point. And he had just come up with this way where it was on the Ice Canyon map, and he was in a tower, and just the enemies couldn't get to him, and he just killed them all, and then would just loot the ammo, and then kill them all. And we got to about half an hour in, and I was like, I am loot, because you don't get your reward until you all die, and there is no cap to the reward, but there's also no cap to the, like, there's not, oh, you survived half an hour, you win, here's the ultimate reward. It's just like, no, you keep on going. And I just went, I don't want to quit out of the game because then I don't get my reward. But also I don't want to die because then that goes down on my record. Oh no, I didn't want to die first out of the two of us because it went down on my record. So I just made it so that he died. I like kicked him out of the tower. I was like, I don't know if this game has like banning, but if so, I might get banned, lads. Like I might get banned permanently off this game. And I don't think I've played it much since, so I might be banned for all I know.
Yeah, Mordhau is a lot of fun, or at least when you're decent at it, and then when you go back and find out you're now trash, it's no longer that fun.
I do still remember though, like it was really, really glorious when the game first came out, and I hope it's still got a decent player base because like otherwise I feel like this would be so much more lackluster. But like I remember, I want to say I booted it up before you guys. Like we probably got it on the same day or whatever, but maybe like late in the evening or something. But I definitely played a game on my own before I played one with you or Tommy, and I just jumped into the battle mode, so it's just like an actual siege or whatever. And I remember just being like, you know that scene in Battle of the Bastards when it's just that oner following Jon Snow and like horses are charging past him and he's like dodging them, and then someone tries to kill him and then someone else comes and slits. That's what it felt like. It was just like trying to get through a battlefield and just chaos around me and just like overwhelmed by it. And I was like, this is an amazing like experience from a gaming perspective. But then I feel like when people started getting good and like started having their niches, it became not as fun after that point.
Yeah, especially when they incorporated a tactic which was well known to chivalry as well, which was literally just like spinning around and like hitting, so you just can't tell where their weapon is, and you know, like they somehow managed to be able to tell themselves.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you know, I did it myself, like just to see how they could possibly do that, because I mean, I get confused even if I just turn the mouse a little bit too quickly, you know, like I'm just like, shit, where am I? I have no idea how these people do that type of thing. It's crazy to me, and it's also very infuriating to go up against.
Yeah. But it was a good game. I enjoyed my time with that. The other game we played quite a bit for a long time was For Honor.
Yeah, I like For Honor.
Yeah, For Honor was a
Again,
good time.
a lot of these games, though, I feel are similar in that they have quite a high skill cap. And again, we sort of started playing that when it was like pretty fresh. Like it had been out a little bit, but it wasn't like
I feel like they maybe had just released like the first big DLC or something, or the first bunch of new characters or something, because we hit it. It was definitely after it came out, but it was when there was like a big wave of popularity again.
Yeah. And so like we were playing with people that were kind of like at our sort of level, a bunch of newbies, you know, and it was pretty balanced, but like once the freshness wears off and it just, you know, all the sort of newer players that aren't that into it sort of filter out, you're left with the tryhards, and again, it's infuriating to go up against them because you just get stun locked and like killed in like a combo.
But I think, honestly, the trending thing that I'm noticing with For Honor, Mordhau, and Hunt is that that's all your fault.
How is it my fault?
Because you're the best of us at all three of those games, and you drag us up to the try-hard level, but you're not try-hard enough to get us through that. Like, you're enough to get us to that level, but you can't carry us through because we're not try-hards and we're not talented. You are talented. And then we're like, oh, the game's not as fun anymore because we keep, like, literally in Hunt, I don't know whether For Honor or Mordhau had, like, actual, like, scoring like that, but in Hunt, you have your prestige level, and Alex was consistently, for, like, quite a decent amount of time, you were the top prestige level, and then pulling us into, like, the high, not prestige level, the, MMR rating. You were like MMR 4 and we were MMR 3, sometimes MMR 2, and you were consistently for a while MMR 4, and so we kept on getting killed, going at the end of the game going, oh, there was 5 MMR 4s in there, and then Alex, who was an MMR 4, and then me and Tommy, who are MMR 2. So, and we're MMR 2 because we're fighting MMR 4s. If we fought MMR 3s, we're MMR 3s because we can fight at that level, but when every other fucker's so much better than us.
Well, that's a crazy thing because I never felt like I was actually good at those games. I to this day, and while I was playing it, I still felt like it was just luck because there were so many, like, and I get this even with like Call of Duty or any sort of online competitive game that I go into. There are some days where I just absolutely like clean up, just wipe the floor with the enemy. And there are some days where I will just like walk in and get instantly headshot, or like I'll get ambushed, or I'll just miss all my shots. And I feel like it's just largely down to luck and how you're feeling on the day.
I think there's definitely an element of that. I think you're also just naturally talented at video games. And I think that kind of goes for most video games that we play, is you're naturally quite gifted at shooters or fighters and such like. Whereas me, who growing up I basically didn't play competitive games except for Jedi Academy, I am like not very good at those sorts of games. I'm okay, but one of the things I like about games like Hunt and going back to like Left 4 Dead and those sorts of games is that there's a very, if you want to, there's a very easy way to learn mechanics of the game that will make you better at the game, or you as a group better at the game. And I felt like in Hunt Showdown, by the time that we were all fairly decent at it, all three of us had a pretty good knowledge of the game, but I felt like we kind of fit into 3 roles when we were firing on all cylinders, which was, you were the shooter, you were like the point man, the person who could consistently do good in combat. Me and Tommy, pretty good at it. Sometimes, you know, like you saying luck, sometimes I'd have amazing luck and do fantastically well, but like it wasn't consistent. You were fairly consistent, except for when you were having a shit day. I was the tactician, is the way I like to think of it. I was like, okay, we approach this encampment or whatever it's called from this direction. Oh, there's a gunshot from there. Oh, I might be being paranoid because I think I heard a dog, but maybe I didn't hear a dog, or maybe it was just an idle dog. I don't fucking know. I'm insane. And then Tommy was the navigator. He was the one who was using Darktide and the map to find clues and such like. And when we were firing in all 3 cylinders, we were a great unit. But if one of us wasn't, it kind of let the whole team down. And I think we said one point when we were playing duos that that game in particular is actually significantly easier if you play duos, because you're only having to try and like sync up with one other person.
Yeah.
It's almost like drift compatibility in Pacific Rim, but when you're playing in trios, yeah, you need to sync up with 2 other people, and yeah, if Tommy's looking at his phone or whatever, then fuck, we're doomed.
Yeah. Also, there were just like quite a lot of occasions, and I'm not saying it was just Tom as well, but
no, of course,
you know,
it was all
like,
3 of us at different points.
Yeah, but like there are quite a lot of occasions where me and you would sort of like be going in one way, and then Tom will go like a massive long way around and just be so far away from us, or just like, as you said, be looking at his phone while we're moving, and he's like, wait, where are you guys? And he'll just be like miles away.
Mhm.
And then we get into a gunfight and he's just not there for it.
Yeah.
And like, as I said, like, I did that a few times as well, because I was like looking for things or whatever.
And sometimes
Or
you
I
want to
would
be
just-
like the hero, so you charge it in. And when I say you, I mean me. I'm not accusing you of doing that. Like, I know that for me, it's like sometimes you're like, I can kill this guy, run after him, get myself killed because he's got 2 teammates around the corner. And then it's like, okay, Pete's dead. We can't get to him. The end. So
Yeah. Or you know, like I would go around the back or something and try and get a better angle, and it turns out it was actually a really terrible angle, and I literally just can't even get into the fight from where I am.
mhm.
So yeah, there's a lot that goes on with it. But I mean, maybe I do just have like an affinity with like shooter games in particular, maybe just because I did spend a lot of my childhood playing stuff like Call of Duty. And I mean, like Call of Duty Modern Warfare, the first one was like the first game that I purchased on PC and actually like played the hell out of, you know, like got golden shotguns and stuff like that. That was the first sort of game that I really put time into. And like ever since I've been like really good at COD.
Yeah.
And so I guess like some of those skills are transferable.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's always like the minutiae of how different FPS is handled, but fundamentally, if you can click heads, you can click heads consistently. Like, so.
Yeah, I'm not that great at clicking heads though. That's my one thing. Like that's actually caught me out a lot of times in games, is that I usually go for body shots because I know I'm more consistent with them.
Mhm.
But in a lot of games, I will shoot them as much as I think I need to kill them, but it won't actually be enough,
Right.
and then they get me.
Do you do this? Because I used to do this a lot, and I literally had to like consciously work to not do this, which is where you'd like attack someone thinking you'd be able to kill them, and then wait to see whether you did, and then that got you killed because you were no longer attacking, you were like pausing. Whereas you should just like follow through, sort of thing. It's the same thing with when I used to briefly do martial arts. It's like, you know, if you're throwing a punch, you need to follow through. You don't stop when you hit the person's face. Not that you do in actual martial arts, like sparring, you obviously don't actually punch someone in the face. But if you were fighting someone for real, you wouldn't punch, hit their face, stop. You go through their face with your fist. Obviously not literally, but like that's the mentality. And I had to like teach myself to do that in video games, where like I'd be like, shoot, shoot, shoot. Oh, he must be. So yeah. Anyways, Darktide looks fun.
Yeah, it does.
It's got character customization, which is fun as well.
Yeah, I mean the combat just looks pretty badass. I mean, I saw a sword in there. I was sold as soon as I saw the sword.
It's also it seems to have like that little dark humor that some of Warhammer has, which I enjoy. Like in the customization bit of the trailer, they like briefly show you like your backstory as to you're a prisoner in this game, which is like the backstory of your character, and it briefly explains why you're a prisoner. It's something like you complained about the taste of the coffee or something, and someone reported you to the Empire, and now you're a prisoner fighting hordes of monsters. And it's like, okay, cool. Like that's the Rishi Sunak's version of what. It's fine. He's not our prime minister. But yeah, it looks fun. But yeah, I do think it might be one of those games that we pick up and don't play a lot. So
yeah, and just for the record, I have been thinking about Hunt a lot, so maybe it's time for a return soon.
I'll believe it when I see it. Until then, I'm Jeremy Renner saying, "Don't give me hope," rather than Jeremy Renner's other famous line.
Yeah.
Did you hear, by the way, in the memes of Andrew Tate getting banned off of various social media, Jeremy Renner didn't announce that Andrew Tate is banned off the Jeremy Renner app, so like, yeah, that's pretty dangerous.
Despicable.
Pretty sure the Jeremy Renner app is no longer around, but still.
Yeah.
But yeah, cool. Assassin's Creed Mirage. We don't.
Yeah, I
We're,
mean,
we're a little bit early on it because they're actually going to do the proper announcement in 5 days' time. But they have announced it because it got leaked. But
yeah, I'm curious because obviously, like, is this separate to Assassin's Creed Infinity, or is this like something that they decided to do instead or something?
I'm hoping it's instead because I really don't like the sound of Assassin's Creed Infinity. I don't like games as service in general, and so the idea of like an infinite, never-ending Assassin's Creed game just makes me go. I already find Valhalla I haven't found too long yet, and I've just started playing Valhalla again. But Odyssey I felt overstayed its welcome by about 20 hours. So, the idea of an endless Assassin's Creed, I'm like, that might make me drop the franchise if that's the one and only game you're going to release for like the next 6 years or whatever. But maybe this is maybe this is just a new name for it, and Mirage is like the first chapter of Infinity or whatever. I guess we'll know more next week. But just from the artwork that they've shown, it looks to be back to being an actual assassin. Because the last 3 games, you're not really an assassin. In Origins, you're like, you see the origins of the Assassin's Brotherhood, but you are playing a character who is not part of that Brotherhood and doesn't start that Brotherhood. Someone else starts it, based in part on what you're doing. So you are very much an assassin type sort of character, but the Brotherhood gets spawned from someone else and you're not directly responsible for it. Odyssey is several hundred years before that, so the assassins don't exist at all in that one. In fact, the Hidden Blade's not even in that game until you get to a DLC. And then Valhalla, you play someone who's a friend of the assassins, and kind of, it's similar to Black Flag. You kind of work adjacent to them, and I don't know whether later in the game you might join the Brotherhood officially, but like you're not actually an assassin in it. So the artwork they released is very Altair, like jumping up in the air with a hidden blade out in white robes over a crowd of people in I'm not sure what country it's supposed to be. It kind of gives me kind of Turkey vibes, like Istanbul, that sort of place, but I could be completely off. And obviously they've already done Constantinople, which is now Istanbul, so we could be returned to Constantinople. I don't know if they've actually said. There was a leak. Let me see if the leak any info.
Oh, it looked quite Arabian.
Yeah, like kind of that sort of area of the world.
Yeah.
Set in Baghdad. Okay.
Oh.
According to the leak. So again, not officially announced yet, but
I do feel as if there's a lot they can do with the Assassin's Creed games that they just haven't done. Like obviously with the sort of Origins upwards games, you know, they really sort of transformed the combat into, you know, something a bit more complex, but also like after playing Valhalla, I will say that I prefer the combat in that to the old Assassin's Creed games, which was something that I really didn't like when they changed it in Origins. Just because it was a combat I was used to, and it was a combat that I thought was fun. You know, just being able to fight off like hordes of enemies in the street just by pressing one button to counter and then, you know, hitting them and whatever. But I do like the combat, and I do like a few of the other changes they've made. But I feel like going forward, there are a few things that they could implement that would make it feel more like an assassin game.
yeah.
So like one of the things I love in Baldur's Gate 3, which is obviously a totally different type of game, but the fact that you have so many different options to like be able to take someone out, like dropping poison in like their drink or something, which again is something that you could do in like Middle Earth, the Middle Earth games, which is, you know, pretty similar to Assassin's Creed, I'd say.
To To
And I
the
feel like
point that
there's
people accuse Shadow of Mordor of being an Assassin's Creed ripoff, even though it's actually more of an Arkham Asylum, Arkham City ripoff, if anything, because it's the same combat and like very similar animations, but regardless.
but it's still amazing.
Yeah, no, it's a great game. I'm
Uh,
not criticizing it, but like
yeah,
I'm saying, if it's a ripoff of any franchise, it's
yeah.
the cousin of it, which is Arkham, because it's even made by Warner Brothers. So like, anyways,
But I think there's just like loads more of that type of stuff they could add to it, just to make it so that it isn't just the same thing every time. You're just like, oh, find this person, jump off a roof and stab him in the back. Like
well,
I feel like that would be a lot more inviting.
So in Valhalla yesterday, I literally just did a mission where it's one city, there's 3 assassination targets, and like 2 of the assassination targets, you do the story missions, you uncover who they are, you confront them, they run away, and then you're shown a cutscene of them murdering someone, which you can't stop. Like, you're physically there, like hidden on the rooftop or whatever. They murder someone. I'm like, well, I feel like the way that I'm trying to roleplay Eivor would be, he would try to stop that. Like, he wouldn't just go, oh, you're burning someone alive, are you? Oh, you finished burning someone alive, have you? I better go kill you now. It's like, okay. But, and then, yeah, you just jump off the edge that you're already on from the end of the cutscene, press assassinate, you've killed the person. Like, if your assassination stats are high enough, you will kill them in one shot without even having to do the little mini game bit. So, like, yeah, I feel like the assassinations become pretty lackluster. And I would say, what I would compliment the previous Assassin's Creed games for, the ones that are, I would say, more assassin-focused, is even if the assassination boils down to you shoving your hidden blade through their back, the actual act of getting to where they are is like a fairly bespoke level in a fairly like bespoke area of the map, even if it's a big open world city. Like, that area has clearly been designed for that one particular assassination target, and like, you go and assassinate them, and it feels quite cool, like you're sneaking into a palace or whatever. Yeah, I feel like in the attempt to make the last 3 Assassin's Creeds more like RPGs, and the last 2 are basically, I would say, like soft RPGs, because they are RPGs, but they're not going like in depth with the RPG-ness of it. Like, it's lost some of that more crafted feel to it. So if Mirage goes back to that, then I'm very, very excited for that. But I also like the role-playing elements. Basically, what I kind of wish that Ubisoft would do is realize people don't particularly care about the modern world stuff and the Animus stuff. So we can cut all of that completely. We don't need it. Like, finish off the story you're currently telling if you need to, but we don't need it going forward. Just set them in that time period. And you can do your Assassin's Creed games where you play as an assassin and you assassinate people. And you could also do a completely different franchise. You could do a spin-off franchise, which are historical epic RPGs. And you go full on the RPG-ness of it, and like stop kind of trying to play half and half and do a mixture, because it's still fun. But I would love it if Valhalla was like a full-blown RPG. So
Yeah, no, I agree. But I mean, there is something in Valhalla that I that had the sort of like foundations of something which I would like, which may sort of oppose what you just said, but I would actually prefer it if the assassination targets weren't just in one place. Like, I really like the what was
the roaming,
is it just called the
order?
order?
Yeah, the order, and like
The
the roaming
order.
ones.
Yeah, I like the order and the roaming ones, and like actually having to go and find clues to like find out where the target could be. And I really like being able to go to those different places, and maybe it just boils it down to a city, and you maybe have to like go and interrogate some people, and then you narrow it down again, and then maybe the target can just be doing different tasks in
At
that
different times of days
location
or
at
whatever.
different, and so you have to actually locate him, and then, depending on where he is, there may be different options for you to be able to kill him, like poisoning their food, or, shooting something down from the rafters to drop on them, or, simply just go in and kill them. I think that would be really cool.
If they wanted to maintain that RPG element to it as well, they could, if they wanted to go full on RPG but also have it still be like a full Assassin's Creed game, you could have it be that as you're investigating, you're doing these like missions to build your portfolio, learn about this target, work out where they could be, work out what their involvement is with the Templars and all of that, and depending on your decisions, that affects what the target's going to be at the end, like where they're going to be and whatever. For instance, if you manage to ghost your way through an environment to get your clue and none of the guards ever know you were even there, which would require significantly better stealth mechanics than any of the Assassin's Creeds have had, like even Unity and Syndicate, which have the best stealth in the game, still not great compared to like actual stealth games, but anyways. But if they allowed you to like ghost into the environment, you get the clue without anyone ever knowing you're there, the target doesn't know that you're coming for them. Meanwhile, if you go in butchering everyone, the target's obviously going to know that someone's after them, and it's going to be like high alert, they're going to be in a fortress or whatever, and it's going to be very, very difficult for you to get to them. So like even like that element to it, and then like roleplay decision that you make, like you interact with, like you're interrogating someone, what do you say to them, what do you reveal? Do you reveal that you're an assassin, you're going to kill this particular target, or are you a little bit more cunning about it? Maybe you attend a party and you're interviewing the wife of the target or whatever, but you're being charming rather than threatening. Like all of that could, again, maybe if you charm her enough, she will let you into the room with the target, and then you can just walk over. Like all of that would be awesome. But even without any of that, I would love it if, and I don't necessarily want all of my assassin games to feel the same, but I would love it if they took a leaf out of Hitman's book, because Hitman provides one level with, I don't know, 2 to 3 targets normally. Those 2 to 3 targets are in particular places, but you don't know where they are to begin with necessarily. If you use Hitman's site, you can fairly easily find them though, or you can not use that and it's more fun. And you have to work out how you're going to get into that area and how you're going to assassinate the target, and you get a better score for killing them discreetly. So yes, you could just walk onto a rooftop and snipe them from afar, but you're going to get a better score if you poison them and you make it look like an accident, or you get them to plug in a guitar into an amplifier, but you've set the amplifier to overload and electrocute them to death. Like, you'll get better score for that. And what Hitman does to kind of make you want to do that more is it kind of gets away with traditional stealth. I try to play a few levels where you don't change costume. It's insanely fucking difficult if you don't change costume. And it's very social stealth based, so you change clothing as you're navigating through the level, which means that, if you're a cook, you'll be allowed in the kitchen because a cook belongs in the kitchen, and there'll be like certain people who work in the kitchen who are likely to recognize, hold on, I don't remember having a bald white man on this Taiwanese kitchen staff crew. That seems weird, and he's got a barcode on the back of So like there are certain ones where even your disguise won't last you that long in front of them, and like that pushes you to think in a very different way. So I would like it if Assassin's Creed took a leaf out of that book, where it's just like there's loads of different ways you can assassinate someone that are baked into that environment. So like you can drop a chandelier on their head, you can poison them, you can obviously probably not in Baghdad in the 9000 BC, or 9000 AD, but electrocute them maybe. I don't know. So yeah, any of that sort of thing. Again, if you could do the roleplay element, convince the wife that he's cheating on her and get her to murder him for you. They could do some really fun stuff with that. However, reading about the leak, which is not been accurate, well, it's a leak, so who knows how much it can be trusted. The only thing it got right was the name. Like, that's the only thing that Ubisoft has confirmed is correct. So it might not be set in Baghdad, it might not be set in 9000 AD, but the leak also suggests that they will have less roleplay elements and more like Assassin's Creed Unity, Assassin's Creed Syndicate, with the big cities, with the big crowds sort of thing. And it'll be one singular city.
I doubt it will be set in 9000 AD, because that's like...
You're right. What am I talking about? 900 AD. Jesus Christ. Okay, I'm tired too, all right? Me talking backwards before the podcast also broke my brain. Or maybe it is. Maybe this is the big plot twist, is that actually new Assassin's Creed set 7,000 years in the future.
I mean, that would be pretty tight. I'd like to see that game.
But yet
But,
somehow
yeah,
it's still the Animus, and you're still somehow like seeing your future descendants' memories through the Animus now, because they need to have that Animus subplot in.
but yeah, like there's definitely a few things that I hope they carry on from Valhalla and improve on. I really like the fact that you like the decisions you make in dialogue, maybe not all the time, but like a lot of the big sort of decisions, a lot of the decisions you make in dialogue, um, actually have an effect on your game going forward. So like, if you choose to
Side with Sigurd or not side with Sigurd during certain decisions, like...
Yeah, or you side with like other characters throughout the game, or depending on who you kill, don't kill, whatever, then maybe one of those NPCs that you've been sort of like chatting up and everything will decide to go and stay at your town. Like I really like stuff like that, and it also just makes the world feel more realistic because you're actually getting involved with the characters and you start making bonds with them, and like you might meet a character and you're like, oh wow, this character's really cool, like it'll be a shame when this quest is done that I won't be able to like speak to him again. But then also like a lot of the characters in Valhalla, you may finish up a quest line and they're like, oh, I'm grateful, like if you ever need anything, just call on us. And you at the time you're just like, oh, like that's it, like that's that character done, I'm never going to see them again. But then they actually come back later on, and you're like, oh wow, so everything I have done isn't actually for naught, and you get to see like everything come together, which is part of the reason why I feel like the Valhalla story was so tight, because it does all come back around.
And the other thing I would compliment Valhalla for, which is not something that's particularly easy to do with a role-playing game. Like, not to go on a Skyrim criticism, but I'd say Skyrim doesn't achieve this for me, and I don't think many of the Elder Scrolls have really done this for me, to be honest with you, is even if your decisions don't necessarily matter, Valhalla, and this is Ubisoft's second ever RPG, so it's pretty good of them to be able to achieve this, makes you feel like your decisions matter. Like, even if they don't, it doesn't feel like your decision had no consequences whatsoever. And that's quite a difficult thing to do. And again, it helps that kind of, as you say, that story connect with you and make it feel like it's your story that you're playing through. I recently did a mission where to avoid spoilers, I'll just say it's a siege mission where you get to call upon some of the allies you've made. And at the end of it, I thought to myself, I doubt it, but I wonder if I had more allies, because I had the opportunity to go and get more allies. I wonder if I had more allies, whether the outcome of the siege would have gone potentially differently. And I went, probably not, but maybe. And that's cool. That's cool that I don't know for certain that it wouldn't have made a difference. So...
yeah, there's definitely one point in the story in particular where some stuff happens, and I'm really trying to avoid spoilers here because it's difficult to explain without it, but there's this one point where stuff happens with some NPCs, some of which were ones that, I just recruited along the way. And I'm like, if I hadn't have recruited those NPCs, would this have gone differently? It's not just the outcome of like certain sieges or other story members, but like the actual characters themselves. I'm like, so what would happen if maybe I just didn't recruit them? Like, would I still be able to find them somewhere, or?
Yeah, so like during the siege, for instance, one named character, so not just like a nameless Viking, one named character gets killed in a cutscene before the siege begins. And I was like, well, I know I could get, like, I haven't done all the different, like, city missions where you make allies. I wonder if I had more allies with me, whether we would have overwhelmed the enemy and this guy wouldn't have been killed, or whether he's always going to get killed regardless of how many allies I have with me. And again, if I hadn't allied him yet, would someone else die instead, or would no one die, sort of thing? So,
or would they even show up? Like, would they show up even if you didn't ally with them?
And just be like, hey, we got a battle going on, I'm a Viking, yeah. That might be horribly racist to Viking descendants. But we're probably Viking descendants, so it's fine.
Yeah. I feel like I'm more of a Roman descendant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Turn your head to the side for me. Let me see your nose. That's a fairly Roman nose, sure. Romans have very straight noses, is what I've been told. I've got a Romanish nose as well, apparently. The more you know. Also, that might be, again, complete bullshit that you read in a history book when you were like 10 years old and went, oh, that's fact for life. And then actually someone's like, it's got no, but absolute bullshit. Particularly because, you know, not all Romans look the same. So it's probably bullshit. But anyways.
Yeah. But, I mean, I gotta say, after playing Valhalla, I do feel excited again for the Assassin's Creed franchise. Like, I'm still a bit apprehensive because there's definitely some stuff that I want carried over, and there's, you know, a few stuff that I would be very concerned if they removed. Also, just the story. I'm like the ending of Valhalla actually excited me. Like the just the sort of like theory crafting of what could happen in the next installment, and if they kind of just ignore that and just go straight into a different story, I'm gonna be very disappointed. But I hope that isn't the case.
Without spoilers, would you say that the story bit you were excited about was Eivor's story or the Animus stuff? Or both. You could say both.
Is both and also neither.
Okay.
Yeah, it's there's a character at the end that shows promise of some cool stuff to come. And yeah, like
one thing I will say, according to the leaks, which again, this is like potentially like full blown rumor because it's now like the leak happened. Ubisoft announced it with some concept art, and then more leaks have happened since then, but they are like directly related to the concept art, so it could just be people saying this is a leak when actually it's just someone's theory. But if it is set during the 9th century, then it would be set in the same century as Valhalla, and people have theorized that the assassin in the concept art might be Basim, who is one of the assassins in Valhalla. So that could be cool if you're playing as Basim. I don't know if that would be after Basim, after Valhalla or before Valhalla. I'd assume before, because he's not exactly young in Valhalla, but I don't know. Could also be a completely different character. Also, I haven't finished it, so I don't know where he lives. So
yeah, without saying anything, I don't think it's Basim.
okay.
Basim could be related, perhaps, but I don't think
It's gonna be
Basim.
Basim's son. We're starting the Basim family arc. It's gonna be another 3 games, just like Ezio's.
I need you to finish it so I can talk about it.
I'm like 58% through. You'll be glad to know that I stopped the main story to go do the Isle of Skye DLC a couple of days ago. I did it in a day. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's cool. Got to see Cassandra again.
I mean, it took me like bloody 78 hours to complete the game, and that was me like rinsing it as well. But I also did side quests and stuff as well, so I'd say that's still pretty good time.
I'm on 95 hours.
That's very good time.
61% through now, apparently.
My God.
I'm enjoying it though. I got back into it. I've remembered how to play again. I vaguely remember what was happening in the story before I stopped playing over a year ago. And yeah. It was quite fun though when I started playing it again. I had two quests active, and it was like, which one of these is the more important one? Because whichever one you do first is like, and I don't know if I don't know if it actually matters, but like the context of it was like, you need to decide which one of these you're going to prioritize. I was like, well, I don't fucking know. I don't remember the context of anything to do with either of these two. The top one, I'll do that one first.
Yeah.
And then I was kidnapping someone's wife. And I was like, why is Eivor kidnapping someone's wife? And then I'm like, oh, right. Apparently she wanted me to kidnap her. Okay, cool. Glad to hear I'm not kidnapping her against her will, because I was confused. But still.
That was such a funny storyline.
Did you finish
that one?
Yeah, I finished that one. I am
Did you bang her?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
In fact, I think that's Avel's first partner as well. Although he went on a date since then. He went on a date with someone in his village.
Oh yeah, I banged her, and then I banged the princess, and then well, yeah, I'll leave. I don't think
I'm
you've got up to
refusing
that
to
point
bang
yet,
Sigurd's
so...
wife at this time.
Oh, I banged her. Yeah, yeah,
Randy, that's her name. But
anyone I came across that, well, except the guys, just because I was just like, you're just not that pretty. Like, if you were prettier, I would, but
no, there's like an archer lady in Valhalla, which I went on a date with, and then she made some reference to when we got high on mushrooms. I was like, oh yeah, we did do that over a year ago. We got high on mushrooms while hunting some wolves. Yeah, I remember that vaguely. So
yeah, I did that quest specifically to bang. I was like, there's because I didn't even realize romance was an option in the game,
Mhm.
and it was only because I stumbled across a YouTube video about it that was like, oh, that's like you can do that, and I was like,
Every
like,
time
how...
Alex was playing the game and came across an option with a love heart next to it, he was like, what the fuck is that? I don't love this person. No. But then he found out it meant bang them and went...
I just didn't come across that, so I was like, well, how do I do this? Like, Eivor is clearly someone who fucks, you know, like it's in character.
I like to imagine you in character as Abel going, how do I do this?
How do I do this? I'm supposed to fuck.
But go ahead.
Yeah, good shit. Good shit. I really like Valhalla, and I'm just, yeah, I'm a bit skeptical about going into Mirage, but also excited.
I hope it feels like classic Assassin's Creed in terms of like people are saying it kind of like even the pose is like straight up Altair's pose. Like there is a poster of Altair doing the exact same pose as the character in the Mirage concept art is. So like people are saying, oh, it feels quite Assassin's Creed 1 vibes. If it's set in the 9th century, Assassin's Creed 1 is set during the Crusades of the Third Crusade, which is a couple hundred years later, I think, if memory serves. So it's a little bit before then. I might be having my history completely wrong, but I think that's right. So I would like it to have Assassin's Creed 1 vibes in that sense of like that time period, but also basically have the city gameplay of Unity, but throw in some of the roleplay elements from Valhalla if you want. I would be totally fine with that, including customizing my character. I've always liked customizing my character, but Unity had the best customization. Unity's just a great Assassin's Creed game. I'll die on that hill.
Yeah, I also hope they allow more customization, and I don't see why it would be such a big deal for it to just be able to like customize your character's face. Like that was one thing that I really didn't like in Valhalla. It was like, well, yeah, sure, you have all these different hair and tattoo options, but it's still the same face. And like, I'd love to just be able to, like, even if it's just a few sliders, just to make it look slightly different. Like, I would much prefer that. Like, customization is one of those things for me where if it's done very poorly, I already have a negative view on that game, which probably isn't a good way of looking at games. Like, even if the story is amazing, but like customization is a really big thing for me.
That's fair. Another thing I would like them to undo from Valhalla is let me put my hood up without my sword disappearing off my back. It really pisses me off that my sword disappears off my back when I put my cloak up.
Yeah.
Also pisses me off that in like 90% of cutscenes my weapons aren't there either. Just like how fucking like it's okay, the game came out in like 2020, but it's 2020 or 2021, whenever the game came out. How fucking difficult is it for me to have my weapons on my back in cutscenes that aren't pre-rendered as well? Like, come on.
Yeah, I feel like cloak mechanics in games are just never right. There's not really any game I can think of.
That's Arkham Knight. Arkham Knight had a pretty fucking perfect cape, if you ask me.
No, I mean like a like hood.
Oh, right, gotcha.
Like anytime it's in a game where you can have a hood up or down, it fucks up somewhere along the way.
I thought Black Flag had a pretty good hood mechanic, which was just you could. That was it. That was all it was. Is you could just put it up, put it down. But yeah. I don't think you could put your. I don't think you could choose to have your hood up or down in Unity or Syndicate. I think in Syndicate, if you were stealthed, your hood went up. And you took your hat off and put your hood up.
Yeah, I think so. I was always sad when that happened. I was like, I just want my hat. That's why I just barely ever did stealth. It wasn't because of any other reason. It was just I just want my hat.
Fair. But either way, next week we'll be able to report properly on Mirage because they'll do the proper announcement, and I hope it looks cool.
Me too. While we're just on the topic of Norse stuff, I saw the Rick and Morty X PlayStation trailer that they put out for God of War, and at the end of it, I saw 11/9/22, and I got
so excited.
Really, yeah, I did. Absolutely fucking baited me with your goddamn troglodyte time system, date system. Just it's so confusing.
It's also confusing because they're the only country that does it, many American things. But I remember once I had a conversation with Americans about the date structure, and I was like, why do you do that? And I went, because that's how you say it out loud. And I went, no, you don't. You say September 11th. And they go, no, you say 11th of September. And I go, oh, fuck's sake.
But that's right.
What?
We do day, month, year. So
yeah, sorry.
11,
so, yeah, they do it the other way around. Sorry, they say September 11th. We would say 11th of September. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah.
Sorry. Again, my brain broke from speaking backwards.
Yeah. Yeah, I was so excited, and I was like, oh my god, like, do I have enough money to pay for this, like, on release? And then, like, I kind of looked at the date, and I was like, wait, no, that doesn't seem right.
You didn't,
like,
you didn't get the collector's edition in the end, then?
No, it just didn't release anywhere else. I think it's probably gonna have another release sooner to or closer to release date, but yeah, no, I couldn't get it, and honestly, I've given up. I think the same thing is gonna happen again, what happened when it first went live, which is that it's just gonna get bought out by scalpers within the first 2 seconds.
Is Ragnarok coming out on PS4?
Yes.
I'm gonna make sure.
So.
I hope so. I assume it is, and I hope it is, because if not, oh boy, I still don't have a PS5.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is.
Also, it might be a good thing that you haven't got the collector's edition, because have you heard about The Last of Us Part 1's collector's editions?
No.
A lot of them are showing up, like, with the boxes dented and like, damaged.
Oh.
And when people are in America at the moment, and when people are reporting this to Sony, Sony's response is kind of, it's like, it's like $100 collector's edition. I would maybe not go, and I'm sure that might just be them being overwhelmed and not being sure what to respond yet, and they might come out and say, oh, we can offer this stuff, but still, better to say something along those lines of, we don't know what we can do to offer right now, we're investigating the situation, we'll come back to you, rather than just, well, sucks for you, I guess, which is basically what the response has been at the moment. So and it is coming out on PS4, so I don't have to upgrade yet. I would love to upgrade, but I don't have the money, and also it's not available anywhere still. So
I think if I have enough money and I see that I can get collector's edition or Jotnir edition, I'll still try. But if I don't, I'm not too fussed. I mean, I cancelled my collector's edition of Saints Row.
Glad you did that now.
Yes. And like, now that I know that there's probably not an awful lot of chance of getting a Jotnir edition, I just went ahead and pre-ordered collector's edition of Gotham Knights.
Fair. I remember when I was younger, I used to think collector's editions were kind of silly because they're quite expensive quite often, and also I didn't have any money for them. But and that one wasn't even from a fucking collector's edition. The Mass Effect helmet was from the Legendary Cache, which didn't come with the fucking Legendary Edition Mass Effect game. It came with a bunch of stuff to do with the game, but not the game, which I knew when I bought it.
Including Steelbook.
Including a steelbook, but not the actual game, which I did know when I bought it, and I was like, it's fine, because I didn't even know if I was going to get the Legendary Edition at the time, because I didn't know if you could port your Shepherd over into the Legendary Edition, and I like my Shepherd, and I like the way he looks, so I don't want to have to recreate him in another engine. Already had to do that with Mass Effect 3, and it broke my heart. As it turns out, you can port them over. I now have the Legendary Edition, but yeah, at the time, they wouldn't say anything about that, so I was like, I'm good. It looks fine how it is. I don't need a Legendary Edition, but yeah. I will say though.
I mean,
sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna get the Legendary Edition anyway, so I was like, well, may as well get it, like, just to have it, really.
Wait, so did you get the Legendary Cache of Mass Effect?
Yeah.
The Legendary Cache or the Legendary Edition? Sorry.
The cache.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. So you got a Mass Effect helmet as well. Cool. Had you played Mass Effect before then?
I had, yeah.
Okay. For some reason I had it in my head that you weren't a Mass Effect fan, but fair enough. Nice.
Yeah.
Sick.
I will say, though, it's one of those games where, like, I played them through, but I can't, like, if you just started speaking to me about stuff that happened in the games, I can't remember.
Garrus.
I mean, yeah, okay, I know Garrus.
Because
But
he's
like,
big.
if you said one of his like less well-known voice lines or something, I wouldn't know what you were talking about.
Can it wait? I'm in the middle of some calibrations.
Yeah, I know that one.
Okay, cool. As long as you know that one, that's the important one.
Yeah, but and it's sad because I have a lot of games like that where I really enjoyed them when I played through them. I thought they were awesome, like. But then thinking back on them, like I just can't remember what happened, or like, you know, people will be talking about a specific story event, and I'm just like, I literally have no recollection of this whatsoever. And like, I always feel like a bit of a fake fan because I can't remember it. But I mean, I play so many fucking games, and also the way I just rinse through things, like I probably don't take much in. Which again is weird because there are some games where I do exactly the same thing, but I can remember pretty much everything.
I think just like some people don't remember a lot about media that they consume, and that can be a positive thing as well, because then you can kind of experience it again for the first time. So like, you know, for me, quite often when I'm going back and replaying a game, it's more for nostalgia than it is for like experiencing it again, because I'm like, oh, I've experienced this before. And even with Mass Effect, like I have played other Commander Shepards in Mass Effect, but I have my Commander Shepard, which is my run, and I haven't finished the Legendary Edition. I picked it up, played through like half of Mass Effect 1, and then other stuff came out, and I'd already played Mass Effect before, so I was like, I'll come back to it later. But like, I was doing the same decisions, the same quests and everything. Did you just have lightning?
Yes.
Nice. We had a storming last night.
Yeah, we had one as well. It's just carrying on, I guess.
Hope your
Come
internet
back for
doesn't die.
more. Yes, I hope my laptop doesn't explode.
If it does, or if it doesn't, maybe get a surge protector. They're very useful. If you don't have one already.
I don't know if I have one.
You should be able to tell, because it will be like a little like switch on the outside of the extension board if you've got an extension board with one.
It looks like I do.
Okay, double check with your mum, but
Yeah.
But yeah, I've got a surge protector one because we had. Luckily, it wasn't any of mine, but my mum's computer like partially got killed by a power cut once. So now we've all got surge protector stuff.
In fact, what I'm gonna do. So I'm just gonna unplug my laptop from its power.
Just in case.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be a good podcast moment though if your laptop blew up mid-podcast. We'd
It
see
might
a
be a good
brief
podcast
flash
moment,
of
but
white
not
in the window, and then just you die. It'd be great.
maybe for a good podcast moment, not a good Alex moment.
But we could then make that a viral video on Reddit and Twitter and such like, and you'll end up on like r/what and r/shocking moments and all of that sort of stuff, and then send us into the stratosphere, mate.
I feel like that's more of a live leak type video.
I mean, sure, that
If I
too.
die in it.
I didn't say you die, I meant you and the cool die, not actually Alex
Oh,
die.
right. Okay. Oh shit, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah. What you're saying about, wanting your shepherd and everything, and like it was kind of a no-go on getting the legendary edition if you couldn't port it over.
Mm.
Like I feel like that is exactly the same with me in Saints Row. Like I have a very particular voice that I always used in those games, and if I couldn't have that voice because that was my character, always making the same character, I didn't want it. And I feel like that's fair enough.
I think that is fair enough, but also in the new Saints Row's defense, I don't know why I'm defending the new Saints Row, but in the new Saints Row's defense, it is a reboot. So like you aren't playing the same character, whereas Saints Row 1 through 4 is you can play the same character because you're playing the same character in the story essentially. Like,
well,
so.
I mean, it's not just about the character. Like I would have made my character different, and the voice didn't have to be exactly the same, but it was the lack of option. Like the thing that got to me most was that they had an English female voice, so it just doesn't make sense to me why they wouldn't just have a male English voice as well. And again, it doesn't have to be exactly the same as the other games. It could just be like any old English accent, but like that's still better for me. I can still work with that. I like the fact that my character was English. I mean, the voice, yes, was fantastic, and I love that. But also the fact that I could just play an Englishman, like, just made the game feel so much better for me.
Did that change any of the dialogue options? Like, did you use like British curse words rather than American curse words at any point? Like, call someone a bloody bastard rather than a dickhead or something? Because that would be really fun if they did that for the last Saints Row games.
I'm not sure. I have a feeling he called someone. I don't know how hard can we go on this podcast?
Oh, as hard as you want, as long as it's not a slur.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he called someone a cunt.
Nice.
But I don't know if that was like, I mean, I wouldn't know because I only ever played with that voice. So yeah, I'm not too sure, but maybe. I mean, that would be a cool little detail if it was.
Yeah, I feel like that's also the sort of detail that Saints Row would do, because if you play as Nolan North, don't they make a couple of like vague allusions to the fact that you're voiced by Nolan North in the third and fourth game?
Maybe again, I wouldn't know.
I think that's something that they do, so it wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, if they did that, then cool. If they didn't do that, then oh well. Cyberpunk Edgerunners. Did you watch the new trailer?
I haven't, but I can have a quick skim
Well, I haven't
through.
watched it either, so I've just knocked over my Coke can. Lucky it was empty. I think it looks alright. It looks it's a Netflix anime set within the world of Cyberpunk, but specifically the CD Projekt Red version of Cyberpunk. So for those of you who don't know, Cyberpunk 2077 is based on the tabletop role-playing game Cyberpunk by Mike Pondsmith, and I know nowadays it's produced by R. Talosorian Games. I don't know if they've always been the producer, but I know R. Talosorian's owned by Mike Pondsmith, so we'll just say R. Talosorian. So Cyberpunk 2077 is based on that tabletop role-playing game, but it's in an alternative universe to the tabletop role-playing game, in the sense of the Johnny Silverhand stuff is not canon to the tabletop role-playing game because other stuff happened in that game. So and the Netflix show is co-produced by CD Projekt Red, and so looks to be set within the universe. If that makes any difference to you, I mean, for a lot of people, their only experience with Cyberpunk will be the video game. So yeah, but yeah, look, I think it looks fun.
Yeah, I mean, just from like watching a bit of it, it looks very good. It looks like my type of anime. A lot of blood and gore. But I don't know. I love anime. I really like the aesthetic of Cyberpunk, which is one of the reasons why I really wanted to play the game. And seeing as I just couldn't play it, I'll take an anime show of it. That good enough for me, really.
When you're at the time, it might be worth trying again. Again, they've patched it a lot since the last time you tried, but I know that they had patched it a lot the last time you tried and it still didn't work, so... But,
Maybe one day. I mean, it is a shame, seeing as I couldn't get a refund for it, so I may as well just not let it go to waste, but...
yeah. But you've got to be in the right mood as well, because it's a big old long game. Well, probably not that long for you, probably about 10 hours, but still. But yeah, I really like the world of Cyberpunk. I like the genre of Cyberpunk as well, but I really like the world of Mike Pondsmith's Cyberpunk. I want to run a tabletop role-playing game of Cyberpunk at some point. Fun fact, if you do tune into Standard Empire in a few weeks, which is our upcoming D&D campaign, the choice was between that and Cyberpunk, basically, and it was a dead split, so I made a decision and went, Standard will be easier to run, so we're doing Standard Empire. Yeah, so eventually I'll run a Cyberpunk campaign. But I also really enjoyed the video game. I did for a long time say that I can't recommend it to people because of how broken it was, but it ran pretty much perfectly for me from day one, which was just luck because people with better PCs didn't have it run perfectly for them. So, but yeah. And then there's Alex, who, well, maybe he should update his graphics drivers at some point before he plays Cyberpunk again. Did I mention, by the way, I updated my drivers yesterday? It took me about 5 minutes.
Yeah, but was your C drive full?
None of my drives are full because I ensure that none of my drives are full.
Yeah, well, it's more difficult for me because no matter how much shit I clear off my C drive, it's always full for some fucking reason.
Probably because you don't defrag it enough and you let random stuff fill it up that doesn't need to be filled up.
Yeah, I think it's probably just the amount of pictures that are on there for some reason.
That might do it. If you've got any videos, that could do it. Music, that could do it. Downloads, that could do it. And then stuff that you've uninstalled but not properly uninstalled could do it.
Yeah, I just need to go through and just have one big sort out of like everything on my PC as well as obviously cleaning it out and everything. I will get around to it. Like I will at some point. It will just happen one day. It won't be planned. I'll just be sat there and be like, yeah, I'll just do it now. That's just how I get most things done.
I imagine you're the sort of guy, like, if you get stabbed, like, if you're walking home one day from work, someone, like, mugs you and stabs you in the stomach, you'll just walk home and be like, I'll go to the hospital at some point. Or I won't, and I'll die. Or I won't, and it will heal on its own. Whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, saying that, I don't go to the doctors unless it's, like, really dire. So, like, and we have the NHS in this country, so, like, there's not even the excuse of, like, we're going to be charged $10,000 for getting medical care.
Yeah, I got a text from the opticians in May saying that my checkup was due, and then I just put it off and forgot about it, and then I got a text in July saying exactly the same thing, put it off, forgot about it. I got one a couple of days ago, and I've been putting it off.
Do you want to know something worse, Alex? So I wear glasses quite frequently. I'm supposed to wear glasses when I'm using screens for long periods of time or reading, because I'm short-sighted and I get headaches. I get headaches quite often, so I wear my glasses, and sometimes my glasses stop me from getting headaches. Quite often, I'm very bad and will only put my glasses on when I've got a headache, which is not actually helping me. But my mum was like, for most days where I'm like working in the office or whatever, I'll wear them all day, just so that I'm less likely to get a headache. And my mum was like, you're wearing glasses a lot more often these days, you should probably go to the opticians. I was like, you're right. Anyways, a month later, I get the text from Vision Express saying, hey, you're due for a checkup. And I went, no, I'm good. My glasses are fine. I like my glasses. A month later, you should come for a check. And I'm like, I'm good. Also, work for a health insurance company where I get a free healthcare plan where I can claim back £150 off of glasses every year. Here's my resignation notice. A month later, I get another text from Visiting Express being like, hey, your appointment's due. And I'm like, also my healthcare plan's about to end. My healthcare plan's ended. I can no longer claim back £150 on glasses.
Oh, no.
Got another text went, I can no longer claim £150 back. So yeah, I should also call up my company and get a new plan just so I can claim back on the glasses and then I can cancel it. Because fun fact, I can do that. And I can get a month free because I used to work for a company that gave me a plan. It was that company, but still. And I'm not going to say what company it is though, because I'm not going to publicize how to cheat the system. But I know how to cheat the system, so I could do that. Anyways.
Yeah, I think it's probably going to be good. I don't
Cyberpunk,
imagine
right? That's what we were talking about.
Yeah.
I'm completely lost. Yeah, no, I think it looks alright. This might be my second anime that I watch through and full if you don't count Avatar: The Last Airbender.
I mean, yeah, it fits into a really weird category, I think, because it is very anime-esque at times.
What, Avatar?
Yeah.
The only reason why I condition that it might not be an anime is because some people claim that anime has to be by a Japanese studio, and so I'm like, fine, if you're going to make that argument, then Avatar's not Japanese studio, therefore not anime, because it's an American and Korean studio, I believe. It's between the two of them. It's Nickelodeon, and I think the animation studio is Korean, if memory serves. So I'm like, when I'm talking to some anime fans, I'm just like, if you count it, Avatar, and then they will either be like, yeah, I count it, or they'll be like, good that you don't count it. I'm like, I don't care one way or the other. I'm just doing it so I don't have to have this conversation. But,
yeah. I don't think it matters. I mean, it's just a great show anyway, you know? Like, it doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah. So Arcane won a bunch of Emmys. Well, I know it won one Emmy, and I think it got nominated for a bunch. I don't actually know if it won a bunch. Let me just double check before I say it won all the Emmys. It deserved to win all the Emmys. It's the first show related to a video game to win an Emmy, first of all. It won the Emmy for Outstanding Animated Program, which was out of the options of Arcane, Bob's Burgers, Rick and Morty, The Simpsons, and Marvel's What If, which, I mean, in that competition, you know, frankly, Arcane's in a league of its own compared to all of that, but still.
I would say the closest, at least in my opinion, the closest one out of them was probably Rick and Morty.
I think Rick and Morty is a really quality show, but in terms of like outstanding animation, well, I guess it's outstanding animated program rather than outstanding animation, but like Arcane is better music, better animation, and a better story, I would say, and better voice acting. I would still say Rick and Morty is really, really good, but like, I would say the same sort of thing compared to like, if you compared Rick and Morty to like, I don't know, BoJack Horseman. Similar sort of level of animation, but BoJack Horseman's got better voice acting and better story and better writing, so it wins.
Yeah,
sort of
no, definitely, yeah.
I don't see it winning. Yeah, it hasn't won any other Emmys, although it won 9 Annie Awards earlier in the year. But yeah, I think that's incredibly well deserved. So, and they just finished up Bridging the Gap, Bridging the Rift even, which is the behind the scenes series on YouTube, which has been really, really fun to watch. If you haven't watched it, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I need to watch that.
I like behind the scenes stuff in general. Like I literally will sometimes, just because I feel like watching behind the scenes stuff, will put on the behind the scenes of either the Indiana Jones trilogy or the Lord of the Rings trilogy, because I think those are just great documentaries and, you know, talk about stuff that I absolutely adore. The Lord of the Rings one in particular is just like mind-blowing when you learn about things like the Force perspective stuff that they did for the Hobbits and Gandalf like talking in Bag End, and it's just like how someone works out how to do that is just insane to me. Which we'll get to it, I'm sure, but Rings of Power, I think, looks great, but there is one little criticism I'll have, which is that when the Harfoots are talking to the stranger, there are like some shots where they use like, or when Elrond's talking to Durin, they'll like use shots where you can see both of them together. I'm like, you're clearly not, like, the way you shot it is clearly not forced perspective. There's no trickery here. It's just you're not actually together, which is fine. Like, you can't tell from the actual like quality of the shot. Like, it doesn't look bad or anything, but it's just like the way they've shot it is just like very flat on, so to speak, and like the clearly divided on two different halves of the screen. It's just like that's how you would do it easily. But like Lord of the Rings has like dynamic shots going around the room of Gandalf and Frodo at the same table, and it's because it's forced perspective, so like you can't tell the trickery there at all, sort of thing. But yeah, so I've really been enjoying Bridging the Rift because you really appreciate all the level of care and attention that went into everything. My favourite little detail I learned from it is that, you know, the Jinx and Echo fight on the bridge?
Yes.
When it's doing like the bit where it's them as kids and Echo's running, that the guy who animated that, it's his son doing the reference videography for it. So like he got his little kid to like run with a sword for a field, and he filmed it, and then they used that as reference to the animation. Like, that's really cute that it's actually like the animator's son is playing Echo in that moment. So
yeah, that's pretty cool. That was, oh my god, that scene was just stand out for me.
The thing is, it is, but there's also so many other standout moments. Like, honestly, like I love a lot of animated TV and animated film, but Arcane is just like, it's weird because the only thing that I can immediately compare it to in that sort of caliber is Into the Spider-Verse, just because they both feel like they changed animation in like a substantial way. And I'm sure there's lots of other animation that has changed animation in a substantial way in the previous few years that I've not missed. That I have missed because it's been Japanese or you know, some other countries originated from, and I've just missed it. Like, I'm sure there's like loads of like standout anime in the last 10 years or whatever that I haven't been aware of because I don't watch much anime. But like Arcane and Into the Spider-Verse, you're just like, whoa, okay, whoa, sort of thing. And yeah, that's very excited for both season 2 of Arcane and Across the Spider-Verse. Part 1, they're doing a part 1 and a part 2 for Across the Spider-Verse, aren't they?
Yes. Yeah.
So that's cool as well. Anyways, but Samo said it was deserved that Arcane won the Emmy, and therefore I have to say mid-show. Mid-show, mid-animation, mid-performance, just because I need to disagree with Samo. Cool. Is there anything else you particularly want to talk about? Do we want to look at anything that we talked about last week that we have lost to the annals of time and therefore might want to try and revisit?
Let's see. Think there's only really 2 that I would say. Yeah, I'll just say One Punch Man got renewed for his 3rd season finally. I'm very excited about that. You probably haven't seen in the other episodes. I did show it in the Lost episode, the Lost tape. I'm not going to show it again just because I can't be bothered. But I have a One Punch Man sleeve. Maybe you noticed it when I do this or whatever, but yeah, it's like my favorite show ever. I'm so hyped for it. I know a lot of people didn't like the animation for the 2nd season. I don't see why. I thought it was just as good as the first one. Sure, it was a little bit different. I think if you watch the seasons back to back, then it's a little bit more noticeable. But if you kind of waited between the seasons, I feel like when you go into it, it's not as jarring. And yeah, like there were still amazing moments in the 2nd season. I think it did a lot for the characters. Good lord.
It wasn't audible, so...
I'm surprised it's very loud.
Yeah, but because it was very loud and not you talking, Discord went, that's probably not him talking.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm really excited for it. I was way more hyped last week when I finally managed to get to talk about it, but now that I've talked about it, it's died down a little bit.
It's a
But
bit like
yeah,
trying to catch lightning in a bottle.
yeah, I could give it a go right now, but
I'm really
that would
hoping
be
you're
a
going to
waste
say
of
something
time.
very dramatic as lightning strikes behind you, because that would be just like perfect. We've had like
Yeah.
2 perfectly framed lightning shots in your window that I've noticed so far. So
Oh, really?
yeah,
Have to try and count the time between them. um, but yeah, I think the other one that we should probably mention is 1D&D. Just quickly, just kind of what it's about and whatever.
yeah. Again, in the Lost episode, we talked about it in depth. We're not going to talk about it too much in depth now, but basically, D&D or Wizards of the Coast of the conference where they talked about D&D and Magic the Gathering. Annoyingly, at least for me, who's not a fan of Magic the Gathering, they did them intermingled, which was like, I just want to have my D&D fill and cut and run, but they forced me to sit through the Magic the Gathering stuff as well. They knew what they were doing. But they announced 1D&D, which is not a new edition per se, but it's a new strategy in Dungeons and Dragons. It's also one they actually had already announced, though not by name, but they kind of announced that they weren't planning on doing a 5.5 or a 6th edition anytime soon. But basically what 1D&D is it is 5th edition. 5th edition is turning into 1D&D, for want of a better term. And it's... The idea is that all future books from now on will be backwards compatible with the base 5th edition game, but at the same time they will change things, they will update things, they will amend things as time goes on. And so in, I believe it's 2024, they are planning to release new versions of the 3 core rulebooks, so Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, and Monster Manual, where you can still use your 5th edition ones if you've got your 5th edition ones, but these new versions will be the most up-to-date. And if you go on D&D Beyond at the moment, there is some stuff, I think it's from Volo's Guide to Monsters, if memory serves, that will now have a legacy banner on it, basically meaning, hey, this is not the most up-to-date version of this monster or whatever, and you can go buy the new, most up-to-date version from this book if you want to, which I get why they're doing it. I don't love the fact that you have to pay again to get the new version, whereas just getting it as a free update would be pretty nice. But at the same time, it means you can choose which one you have, because you can choose to just keep playing your legacy content without having to buy the new content. But so that's the basic plan, is that going forward, forever, there will never be another edition of D&D until there is one. But because there will be one.
Yeah. And also with like this new format, they're introducing a lot of different, well, I say a lot, there's been a couple of things that they're introducing to websites like D&D Beyond, which Wizards of the Coast recently purchased. So a couple of the different features are, for one, the ability to actually playtest through D&D Beyond, which means that Unearthed Arcana is going to be a lot more accessible for people now. Maybe you've wanted to try these different things out and playtest some of the new features they're implementing, but you haven't really seen any obvious way of doing it, and most people probably just don't bother because it's not right there in front of them. Well, now if you go into D&D Beyond and you go to sources, it will literally just be like playtest, and then you can sign up for it and you can just playtest whatever they're putting out.
I think it's the first result as well, and has like a big hey, playtest this thing, so it's like properly advertised as well.
Yeah, which I think is great, because I think that lets in a lot more of a community feel. You actually can feel a part of influencing your favorite game. And yeah, I think it's definitely something they're pushing for, especially with combining it all, because obviously I also feel like there's kind of a lot of, not rivalry, but obviously you hear people saying oh, I just won't play 5e, it sucks, I play 3.5, stuff like that. And I've
3.5 was better.
Okay, well,
No, I don't remember how 3.5 played enough to say whether it was better. It was definitely more number crunchy, so I prefer 5e in that regard. But it definitely had better customization. Also, the books were so much more beautiful. But anyways.
yeah, but I think going forward, like, without having any new additions that, you know, people will then go like, well, actually, this was better. I feel like you're probably still going to get that anyway.
Oh, there'll be
But-
people who are playing 3.5 in 5 years' time going, what D&D sucks, 3.5 is better.
Yeah, but moving forward, you know, with people having more say over what actually happens to D&D, I think there'll probably be less of that just because the community has more say rather than Wizards making the big changes and then people just being like, oh, that's pretty cool, or that fucking sucks.
Hey, that was pretty good timing. You said that fucking sucks, lightning bolt.
Yeah. The other feature, I don't know if you mentioned it, but also if you buy a book, then it also gets upgraded to a digital version on D&D Beyond.
Yeah. So I assume there'll be like what's called a QR code or whatever that you can scan or something like that, or a code you can put in on the website. So yeah, when you buy a physical book, it will link to your online account, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. They're also making that 3D like map making software.
Yeah, so it's called the D&D Digital Play Experience, is I think the name that they used on the conference, which is a fucking awful name. I really hope they just come up with a better name than that. It could literally just be called D&D Virtual Tabletop or something like that. Or D&D 3D, they could call it that. Although that might get in the way of them one day releasing a 3D movie. But anyways.
Or D&D 3D TT. My God, what the fuck did I just say?
3D TT.
Tabletop.
TTRPG VTT.
Yes.
D and D TTRPG VTT. Yeah, that'll
3D.
flow. That'll flow right off the tongue. But yeah, so they announced that, which if you are familiar with virtual tabletops, it looks incredibly similar to Tailspire. I know there is another 3D one out there as well, but Tailspire's like the big one. And on the one hand, I think that competition is good because it will hopefully encourage both parties to try and maintain a good level of quality rather than just going like, we've got customers, whatever. But at the same time, I don't know how big the Tailspire team is, but it's pretty small. I don't know how big the D&D virtual play experience or D&D TTRPG VTT 3D team is, but I imagine it's probably bigger and better funded than Tailspire, which kind of sucks that like a big company can just come in and just be like, oh, we're going to do the exact same thing as you're doing and probably outsell you. But I do think Tailspire has it in their corner that they've got like a partnership with Hero Forge now, so that you can import your Hero Forge characters into Tailspire. You can play, it's system agnostic, so you can play other systems other than D&D on it, whereas I'm going to go ahead and assume that D&D will only support D&D. So yeah, it's a mixed bag, but I do think it looks cool, it looks pretty. I personally would rather fund Tailspire rather than give more money to Wizards, but that's just me.
Have they clarified that it will have to be purchased and isn't free?
They have not clarified anything of the sort, but I'm going to assume it's a purchase thing.
Because if they play their cards right and actually want to take over that market, I could see them making it free, maybe.
Maybe. If they do, though, what it will be is free, and then the various 3D models will be purchased, which is basically how a lot of these platforms work. It's how Roll20 works. But yeah.
Yep.
Pay £5.99 for Orc 2-pack. Not 2-pack. That makes it sound like I'm saying the Orc version of the Rapper 2-pack. I meck to say like a Orc Pack 2, as in like it's the second, whatever. It's a DLC with more orcs. Okay, that was the angle I was going for. But
I'm changing my character for Sundered. I'm now playing an orc version of 2-pack.
okay. But yeah, I will say I do like the visuals of D&D, TTRPG, VTT, 3D. Because what they've done is they've used what's called a tilt shift lens to make it look like it's actual miniatures. It's basically like what you use in photography to make something look very, very small is tilt photography or tilt shift photography. So they're doing that so everything looks like a miniature, which the idea behind that is for it to look like you're playing around a table rather than Tailspire, which is like, I guess, more like a video game in its visuals. And it looks pretty. But I also, playing virtually, you can tell you're playing virtually, and it doesn't feel like playing around a table because you've got things like internet disconnects or people getting up from the chair to go for a piss and you're not realizing as the DM. So, it's always going to be a different feel. So
it's just Callum.
Samo does that sometimes. Gets up without me realizing. Tommy's done it before. I think you're the only diligent one. But also, Callum's always in about 20 minutes early, so therefore Callum gets a brownie point as well. And Tommy's always late, even when he's not.
There is, I think there's one or two, I can't remember. Maybe it was just the same thing I saw like twice, but there is a virtual tabletop on VR.
Yeah, I've seen that. Where one person plays the DM and the other people play the players, sort of thing, right?
Yeah, and obviously you can place down the units and actually move around your token and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to do a one shot or something with anyone that has VR. I can't remember if Callum has. I know Samo doesn't. So
I don't know if the whole game is like this or whether it's just what I saw these people playing in a video where they were playing it, but it might be only pre-made campaigns and it's more of it might be closer to a board game than it is a tabletop role-playing game. Because it's like the players have an objective to get to a certain area of the map is what I saw, and the dungeon master is trying to defend that area of the map by throwing enemies at them. But there might be a build your own map and set your own objective mode, I don't know. So
either way, I think it looks pretty fun. I'd like to give it a go.
Yeah. I saw yesterday talking about VR games of basically what's a VR Mario Party, and that looked like a lot of fun.
I played Mario Party for the first time when I was in Sweden.
Oh, yeah? Did you lose?
I won my first one, and then Tom absolutely fucking thrashed me because he just kept going round in a loop and collecting party members, or allies.
What the fuck Mario Party were you playing?
The one on Switch.
Oh, okay. I don't know what that one is.
Yeah, so basically you can go to one of the squares you go to. You can pick up an ally, so you'll get Mario, Luigi, whatever. And I don't know how the other Mario parties work. I don't know if Switch is similar or completely different, but you have a particular character dice for whatever character you're playing. So you can choose to either roll a normal dice or your character dice, which may go 1, 1, 2, 4, 6 type of thing.
This sounds weird.
Yeah.
I don't like its change.
And so when you pick up one of these allies, you can basically choose to use their character dice along with yours. And also when you move, you roll both of their dice, and whatever they roll gets added to your movement as well. And yeah, he just kept going around in this one particular circle, picking up these allies, which was pure luck. He just kept rolling the same fucking numbers that he needed to get to keep going round. And yeah, he just got all these different bonuses because he got like extra points at the end for picking up the most allies and for doing the most of this and that. And yeah, he rinsed me with it.
And this happened while you were in Sweden.
Yeah.
So correct me if I'm wrong. After that, you had the opportunity to get revenge on him in Talisman. And you gave up.
I was bored.
And ruined the entire night because we all stopped playing about 10 minutes later.
Oh, rip. It's nice to know that I hold the group together.
It was, for me, it was because you'd stolen my sword and I was planning on getting revenge on you, and then you got killed, and I was like, well, that's taking the joy out of me getting my vengeance on Alex because he just got killed by some rando, and then my sword's just on the ground there.
Sorry, but
particularly because I would have won. I had the perfect plan to stop you from beating me in one-on-one combat as well. I can't remember what I had, but I had an item you didn't know I had that would have basically stopped you from. I think it either stopped you from rolling dice or it gave you a minus to your dice roll or whatever. And I was like, and I've still got all of these other boons, so I'm just gonna win and then get my sword back and then fuck you. So, anyways. For those of you who don't know, Talisman is pain incarnate, but we agreed to all play it for one night to introduce Tommy's significant other to it and bully her, and Alex quit a measly 4 hours in or something.
I was losing my mind.
That's the point. That's what the game is.
I know, but at some point something has to give, and it was my brain.
Yes, exactly. Your brain should have given.
Gave all it had.
It didn't, because you weren't in the mental institute when we were done.
It isn't a good game of Talisman until at least one person
is institutionalized.
in a mental institute.
Other things we talked about last week, which I don't want to talk about really, other than mention that we did talk about it, and lol, is the Ezra Miller situation where he actually gave an apology for his actions, which is completely fake, and he's still having his movie release, so go fuck himself, or themselves, sorry. And the Pennyworth rename, which is just lol.
Yeah. I mean, without going too much into it, they've decided instead of just calling it Pennyworth, which they have for the last two or three seasons, they've now decided to just rename it and call it the origin of Batman's butler.
No, it's still called Pennyworth. It's Pennyworth, the origins of Batman's butler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Which is just ridiculous. Why?
Man, I can't wait for Disney to do a TV show or a movie about Darth Sidious studying under Darth Plagueis, and it'll be called Sidious: The Origins of Darth Vader's Emperor.
That would be great. We also talked about Ms. Marvel
and the bit of She-Hulk.
Yeah, I can't bother with She-Hulk. We'll probably just talk about that anyway when more episodes are out. But yeah, Ms. Marvel, I think we both just kind of said it was enjoyable. We both enjoyed it, but the pacing with the story was a little bit weird. It was a bit confused.
Mm-hmm.
Had another villain problem with most of the shows.
I think the main takeaway we had was I don't remember whether you agreed with me on this point, but I said I really, really enjoyed the first couple of episodes where it's just her in high school discovering her abilities and whatever. And then you and I both agreed that we really liked the
Pakistan bit,
but it didn't feel like it married up to the beginning of the show or to the final episode. So it's one of those situations where it's maybe this should be 2 different seasons and make the seasons shorter or something. But it felt like 2 different stories jammed together. And I don't think it connected awfully, but it didn't feel cohesive particularly. So
yeah, I feel like there was just too much time. I think that what the problem was the penultimate episode was solely on one part of that story.
I think it did drop in a little bit with Cameron and what's her friend's name?
Bruno.
For some reason I was thinking Hugo, and I was like, that's not right. Bruno. I think it did drop in them, but it was like maybe 5 minutes or something. Because like, doesn't the episode end with like Bruno's apartment blowing up or something to lead into the next episode? But like it's very little screen time for that episode is dedicated to the New York storyline. So, or not New York, New Jersey.
And yeah, you just kind of like forget everything that was happening, like where Ms. Marvel wasn't, and yeah, it felt really jarring to have that disconnect. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed it. Like, if they decided to make another season of it, I would happily go back and watch that.
Yeah, I think the takeaway we had was like we both want to see more of that character, which is that's a good takeaway to have. So cool. Media we consumed?
Yes.
The week?
There
we go, cool. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure.
I feel like we've got one that we're both going to talk about, so we can get to that at some point, but
I feel like that's probably the only one that I do have to talk about. I haven't really done or watched anything else recently.
Fair enough.
I guess I'll just go straight into it then.
Lotto Rop?
Yep, Lotto Rop. Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power.
It's a worse acronym than Got Hot D, which is Game of Thrones House of the Dragon. So
yeah, Got Hot D is just like funny and like
pinnacle acronym.
Yeah, it just sounds like good, Whereas Lotto Rop just sounds kind of disgusting.
I mean, I feel like most people will probably just call it Rop, but still, that's still not a particularly great name.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Lotto Rop sounds like some like really like disheveled character in a fantasy world of its own.
Lotto Rop kind of sounds like what I imagine the black speech sounds like.
Yes.
Where it's supposed to be so foul to the human ear.
Yes. It includes Lotto Rop, Moist, and then a few others that I can't be bothered to think of.
An American pronouncing cunt.
Yeah.
Because, I'm sorry, Americans, your accent doesn't fit that word. It just doesn't sound meaty.
Also, Americans saying the word aunt.
Ant.
Mm.
But I'm glad that they pronounced it that way because it led to the best, well, not one of the best, not the best, one of the best Lonely Island songs, which is I Fucked My Aunt.
Yeah.
Where, spoilers alert for a song in the third verse, Andy Samberg reveals that he didn't fuck his aunt, he fucked his aunt. And then also fucked his aunt. Like, he just throws that line at the end of the verse.
I've been watching a lot of Brooklyn Nine-Nine again recently, started making my way up through it. Like, I remember how much I used to love the show. Like, in its beginnings, I thought it was really good. I just think there was just too much of it for me.
I never finished it. I think the last season I fully watched was the one that ended with them getting married.
Yeah, I didn't finish it either. Like, I feel like there was just too much. I feel like they could have ended it like a couple of seasons before and it would have been the perfect point. It just went on for way too long for me.
That being said, I never didn't enjoy it. I think maybe I just fell off it and could go back to it at some point. But
yeah,
the one thing I always respected Brooklyn Nine-Nine for doing, and I don't know how well they handled it in the final season. I know they said they were going to address it in the final season, but like the final season came out in the aftermath of a very big social movement in America after the murder of George Floyd by a police officer, and there was a lot of conversation going around about whether the police should be basically existing more or less in America, because there was this whole defund the police. If you don't know, the police are like, I think the second most funded organization in America behind the military. So like they have tanks and weapons and such like, and there's just no rationale for it whatsoever. And a lot of police are well known, not all, because it's not going to be all police officers, but a lot of police are well known for not being particularly well trained, making bad decisions, and the problem is when you have a police officer who makes bad decisions and has a gun, those can be fatal bad decisions, and you've also then got just, rampant other problems. So anyways, so they said that they were going to address that in the final season. I don't know how well they addressed it in that final season, but they did address other social issues very well in that show. Like the one I remember is the one with I can't actually remember Terry Cruz's character's name. Is he called Terry in the show as well?
Yeah,
Okay.
Terry Jeffords.
There's an episode where he gets like racially profiled, and I think they did that episode really, really well. They've got obviously episodes to do with homophobia really, really well, with Holt being a gay man married to another man. So I think they dealt with a lot of social issues really, really well. I don't know how they did that in the final season though, but anyways, so I respect it a lot for doing that, because I think a lot of comedy shows are like, we're comedy, we're lighthearted, we're not going to touch any of that stuff. And it's like, I've always respected shows like that, or Scrubs, which deals with things like death a lot. It's like, I appreciate comedy tackling the difficult stuff as well, because comedy should deal with the difficult stuff. Like that's a good thing to do with comedy, is get a better understanding and exploration of it, but through the lens of everything's going to be okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost just like, just kind of like easing people into it, I guess, as well. Like if you just sat someone down and just started explaining all the plights of, like the various different people and, representations in the world, they're probably just gonna, tune out and just not care. But I feel like if it's sort of structured in such a way where, yeah, there are some funny moments surrounding it, but also they put the message across in a, well put way, people will like pay more attention. So yeah, I think it's great how they do stuff like that.
I also think the genius of doing comedy where you tackle difficult subjects is that you have the brilliant ability to disarm your audience, because your audience is going, la 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 la, it's a funny comedy show, and they're like that for 4 episodes, and then you're like, boom, someone just died in the hospital in Scrubs, and everyone's sad, and Dr. Cox is throwing stuff around the room, and everyone's sad, and now Dr. Cox is going to spiral, and you're just like, oh, you broke me, because I wasn't prepared, I wasn't jaded or anything, and then they come back, and they're like, la 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 la, and they do that for a couple more episodes.
Yeah, I think House is a brilliant example of that. There's so many times in House where you just kind of forget that it is meant to at times be serious. Like, as you said, it's in a hospital, they're diagnosing things that are like potentially fatal for pretty much most of their patients. And then you're just having House being his typical cynical, like selfish bastard, just kind of like making jokes at the expense of everyone around him. But then, he has that sort of moment of realization and he actually gets serious, and you're like, oh yeah, like there are people's lives at risk here.
The other show that does that perfectly is BoJack Horseman, because BoJack Horseman is completely fucking ridiculous comedy a lot of the time, and then it spiritually breaks you. So, yeah.
But anyway,
Rings of Power.
Yeah. I think we should just go into spoilers.
Well, I guess before spoilers, yay or nay so far? 2 episodes in. Yay. How big of a Lord of the Rings fan would you say you are?
I'd say I'm pretty big.
What sort of Lord of the Rings media have you consumed, just so that other people can judge that for themselves if they want to?
Then probably not that big.
I'm the same, where I'm like, oh, I'm a pretty big Lord of the Rings fan. Haven't read the books though.
Yeah, I've seen all of the movies, obviously. I've read The Hobbit.
I've read The Hobbit too.
I started reading the first book of the actual Lord of the Rings. I think I got like about halfway through it, and I did mean to finish it off, but I think I started it when I was at uni, and then I became heavily depressed and anxious, and I just kind of put it down because I didn't feel like doing anything. And then after I came back from uni, I like had it by my bedside to finish it off, and it just sat there collecting dust.
But you've listened to all of the Witcher books on audiobooks, so maybe what we should do, because I've also given up on reading it about halfway through. I think I got to either just after or just before Moria, I can't remember which, and I gave up. and I tried reading it younger than uni, like maybe 14, 15. But yeah, maybe it's more digestible in an audiobook. But I do think I've said for a long time. Sorry if you're a Tolkien fan and you're about to discredit everything that I'm about to say about Rings of Power based on this, but I've always said I think Lord of the Rings is a fantastic story that I don't like the writing style of. Like, I think it's a great story. I don't like Tolkien's way of writing, which is he almost writes like it's a textbook, which is, some people really like that because it's this almost like he's a completely objective narrator, and he goes into a lot of detail and stuff, but it just doesn't vibe with me. So yeah, I've always found it like difficult, and The Hobbit is much easier to read because it's written for children, not for adults. So that's the one I've managed to get through. But I tried the Silmarillion as well and went, fuck no. Tried the Unfinished Tales and went, fuck no. So yeah.
I do have all of the books. I
Same.
bought like a actual collection, but yeah, as I said, started trying to make my way through it, and it just fell by the wayside. And
the other big mistake I think my family has is that our copy of The Lord of the Rings is all 3 books in one book. So like you get halfway through the Fellowship of the Ring, and you're like, but I've got this much more to go before I finish the other side of the cover, sort of thing. So like, yeah, you don't feel like you're making progress. I'm pretty sure it's thicker than the Bible, our copy of Lord of the Rings. And the Bible does use very thin paper, so maybe that's part of it, but still.
But yeah, I mean, even when I was reading it, it wasn't, it wasn't easy.
Mm-hmm.
Like I like to think of myself as a pretty good reader. That sounds dumb saying it out loud, but like, you can
read hard text, so to speak.
Yeah, and it was a trial. I mean, like, I read when I was in sixth form, I joined like a book club. Or I think I may have been one of the co-founders of the book club.
Nerd.
It was because I liked Power.
The book or the feeling?
the feeling.
Okay.
I was just like, I really like. Okay,
would you like it in ring form?
I mean, if possible, yes, that would make life a lot easier. But just I guess off topic. When I was in school, I used to really love having the feeling of like doing something more than everyone else. And so
elitism, you wanted to feel better than everyone else.
Yeah, basically. I wanted to have a sense of power. And that's
have
why
you considered joining the Tory party?
No. But like with most of these things, I liked having the sense of power without actually having it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because as soon as you get given a load of
responsibility
responsibilities and stuff,
because
just
what comes with great power? I forget.
Yeah, exactly. And so like that's why I was always going for student counsellor and everything. Student council even. Well, I guess I would have been a counsellor on the council.
But not like a student counsellor, as in someone who talks to students about their problems. Got it? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if I wanted to, I could probably become that because I have the certificates. I just need to do one more course, but and I have thought about it. But yeah,
and
like
it's something genuinely that I think could be quite rewarding because a lot of kids can benefit from that. I went to counselling when I was young.
Yeah.
Because I had anger issues.
Yeah, me
now
too.
I don't. Well, I do, but it's internalized and it's about machines rather than people. I scream at my computer. I don't scream at individuals anymore.
But yeah, like I ran for the student council like a bunch. I was just on it because nobody else wanted to do it for like years. And then I was like, well, I quite like reading, and also like to be able to just show up and be like, so this is what we're doing this week. Like that sounded good to me. I also did like a mentor-mentee thing where I mentored like some little kids just because I was like, it's cool, I have superior knowledge to these kids. I can just tell them whatever I want, and like they'll just believe me.
Did you fuck with them?
No, I was actually really good.
Because in
I
my
actually
school,
looked a problem child.
in my school, we got set with a mentee. So year 11s got set with like a mentee in year 7. The idea being like they had someone to go to if they were having problems, basically. And I had this lovely little boy who drew me a picture, if memory serves as well, at one point in year 7. But I had an emo fringe at the time, which normally went over this eye. And so if I saw him coming over to me, I would move my fringe to my other side. Like, I'd turn around, move my fringe to my other side, then pretend to be Peter's twin brother, Owen, who has no idea who this kid is. So he'd be in front of his friends trying to talk to me and be like, I don't know who you are. And he would know that I knew who he was, but his friends didn't. And I was just like, oh, I'm such a bastard. And you can tell where I get this whole, like, gaslighting my friends from a bit, right? It's been me or whoever. But...
No, I was actually really good. I had I'm not to toot my own horn or anything, but I was actually kind of proud of myself for what I did, because I kind of just went into it because I was like, it's something for me to at the time, I think I was thinking of like, well, it's something to talk about in my resume, on my CV.
Your resume.
And also, yeah, my resume. And also it gets me out of doing certain stuff because it was like at certain points during like classes and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, whatever, sounds all right. And yeah, I got paired with this like problem child that would shout out during class and would like swear at the teacher, just wouldn't get any of the work done, that type of thing. And yeah, like it kind of did change the way I thought about things for a long time. And I feel like you know how you can give your friends advice, but then you don't take that same advice yourself. I feel like it was very much that with me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've had a lot of trouble with teachers. In fact, I hate them. Like, I hate teachers. I really dislike them. Your mum's a teacher, isn't she? Yeah.
It's fine.
But
I hated being taught by her when I had to be taught by her for a term, just because it was really fucking awkward. So
But yeah, I've never gotten along with teachers. There's probably like maybe one or two that I did.
Mm-hmm.
One of which was really a strange relationship, because we were talking about like exotic foods one lesson, and I was like, oh yeah, I want to try scorpion and stuff, and like somehow it came up about like people eating placentas, and like someone was like, oh, would you eat a placenta? And I was like, I think I'd try a placenta. And at the time my teacher was pregnant, and she just goes, oh, you can eat my placenta if you want, Alex. And I'm like, cool.
Okay.
Yeah, it was very strange, but she was.
I'm sure it was all well intended, but I don't like those vibes.
No, it was very strange. It was kind of creepy at the time, but
yeah, I'm sure it wasn't. I hope it wasn't, but no, I don't like that.
But yeah, I've just never gotten along with them. And I just feel like that kid was probably having the same thing like happen to him that was probably happening to me that I just haven't realized until like years on, which was he just wasn't getting any attention. And obviously that sounds bad, like attention seeking in itself is seen as a bad thing. But when you're a child and obviously you don't know what's going on at home or anything, it doesn't even matter what's going on at home at some times. If the teacher is going around speaking to other kids and focusing more on others, and a kid is struggling, like even if it's just not with his work, but just being like able
Present.
to sit down and do it, just being present, and the teacher's off just kind of ignoring that kid because they're just like, oh well, he's just a problem child, I'm just not gonna like deal with it, having that extra little bit of attention, someone just to be able to sit there with him and just kind of talk it through. Like whenever he'd play up, I'd just be like, what are you getting from this? Right? Like you're here. You have to be here, right? All you're going to do is get yourself into trouble. Surely you don't like that. And he'd just be like, well, no, I don't. And I'd say, why are you doing this then? Like, you're going to have to be here. You may as well at least put in some of the work, and then you won't be getting into trouble. Doesn't matter even if you, like, fail or you do badly. The fact that you sit there and actually try to do the work and just pay attention, who knows, maybe you'll even start to like learn a little bit more and it will all make sense a little bit. But you're just throwing it all away if you're just going to sit there and swear at the teacher and just play up. Like, nobody wins from this. What's the point of this? And like, I got when my mentorship ended, like the teacher just came up to me a few weeks later and she was like, I really appreciate everything you did for him. He's actually been a lot better. Like, obviously he still had a few moments here and there, but that's kind of to be expected.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, I actually felt really proud of myself for that. And it's a shame that I only saw that like years later when, I don't have to tell myself that type of thing now. And yeah, it was a really strange experience. Like, I'd never, because obviously, as I said, I went into it just thinking, oh, it's time to get out of class. I never expected to actually like try. Yeah, exactly. I never expected to try.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
dude.
it was mad.
I really like. I genuinely think that's an awesome little anecdote. I have no idea what to categorize that as in the podcast, though. It's like recommended counseling children. Like, I'll figure it out. But no, thank you for sharing.
Thank you for listening. Maybe I should just become a counselor. Maybe I'm just playing at this point.
I reckon you'd be good at it, but and as I say, I think it could be rewarding. I mean, it's what I like about training is I like helping people. It's obviously much more like, it's your job role and I'm helping you be good at your job role, but I like the fact that someone's like, you've helped me be better, and I'm like, thanks, I appreciate that sort of thing. So like, I find that rewarding. So
I think the only reason that I like kind of keep saying I'm not so sure about it is because I feel like I have imposter syndrome. Like, so when I was sat around with the rest of like the people on my counseling courses and everything, obviously they go around and they ask like, so why are you doing this? And they give these really sort of like altruistic like reasons, and saying stuff like, oh, I feel like I have a lot to give, I care about people, I want to help people. And I'm just sat there in my brain thinking, well, I'm pretty good at this. I like being good at things, and also it pays well.
Yeah, that's fine, dude. I mean, look, on the subject of imposter syndrome, we will get to Rings of Power. On the subject of imposter syndrome, I basically had what I jokingly refer to as my work counselor at my last job, because it was someone that like I got booked in every 6 weeks or something, like half an hour meeting with her just so she could check in, see how I was getting on in this new role, basically like helping me if I had any issues, that sort of thing. And I remember once saying to her that I felt like I had imposter syndrome at being a trainer, because I was like, I'm training on stuff that I barely know myself. Like, I'm literally spending 2 days learning a topic and then training it to 80 people. And those 80 people do that job and they've done it before, but I'm like making sure that they're doing it perfectly. So I'm coming in to train them to like brush up their skills. But I've spent 2 days on it. They've spent 2 years on it. Like, how does that make sense? You're not being brought on to be you're not being brought on to be an expert in what you're training on. You're being brought on because you're a trainer. You know how to train people. So like, I think imposter syndrome is universal for pretty much everyone. I hope it's universal for everyone. If for some reason you're just like super self-assured in yourself in everything you do, I'm a little bit concerned about being around you. Not gonna lie, I find that worrying.
That's some narcissistic shit, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, it doesn't have to be like self-doubt constantly, but I think everyone has this element of like, I'm not sure. Surely there's someone who's better qualified or whatever. But the truth is, like, if you went down the route of counseling and you got it because you are the person for that job, And if you don't get that particular job, it's not because you're not a good counselor. It's because there happened to be someone better going for the same role as you or whatever. So like, yeah, if you think you'd get something out of it and you'd enjoy it, I'd say go for it. And also, you'd have power over people, which brings us back to Rings of Power.
Yeah.
So we're both,
overall, I really liked it.
yeah, and I'd say kind of gauging from our Tolkien fan status is that we both really appreciate the world of it, both enjoy a lot of the content that comes out of it, but we both found the books a bit impenetrable. So we are maybe not ultra Tolkien nerds who've actually read the books. I have read a lot of the stuff from the books on the wikis, and I watch a lot of like videos about it and stuff. So I know more than someone who's never read the books, but I definitely haven't read the books. I've read The Hobbit and some of Fellowship of the Ring. So
Yeah, I'd say I'm probably less well versed in it than you. Like I have read some things like outside of the movies and stuff, but like it's really not much. Like I haven't gone out my way to watch videos on it or anything. So like I probably know a little bit more than someone who hasn't read the books, but not my bunch.
let's put it this way: when watching Rings of Power, I learned that Elrond was a half elf, which I didn't know before watching Rings of Power. Yeah, did you not catch that?
No.
It's directly mentioned that like one of his parents is human or something, which I can't remember the full history of it because I looked up. I was like, wait, really? He's half elf? And then yeah, he is half elf. But I believe one of his parents is elvish, one of his parents is human. And basically, how half elves work in Lord of the Rings is that at some point they get given the choice between being an elf and being immortal, or being human and being mortal. And Elrond chose immortality, and his twin brother chose mortality, and his twin brother went on to found the Kingdom of Númenor, which means that Elrond is also directly related to Aragorn, because Aragorn is Númenorian. And I was like,
oh shit.
And then you think about obviously all of Elrond's talks with Arwen in Lord of the Rings about going to the Grey Havens and her rejecting it, and you're like, she's choosing mortality, and he's had this happen before with his other family. Like, it just adds so much weight to it. I was like, thank you, Rings of Power, for dropping that lore on me that I never knew.
I also, just to add to that, and I don't know if this is a spoiler or not, but I'm going to say it anyway because...
Well, we've said that we like it, so let's just go into spoilers now.
Yeah,
so.
okay. Spoiler alert. I also had a kind of epiphany while watching it with Tom, and I could be completely way off base with this, but like it made sense to me at the time when I thought about it, which was obviously Galadriel had the opportunity to go off to the Undying Lands and then decides, actually, I'm going to stay there. And obviously she has a talk with Elrond before this, and he's like telling her like this is like a once in a lifetime opportunity, literally, like you cannot come back from
not
this,
not
right?
like a Nat 20 in Star Wars, which is not actually a once in a lifetime opportunity.
But
yeah,
you know, like you can't come back to this, and like obviously part of these 2 episodes I was just thinking, damn, she's really set on getting Sauron, you know, like she's not going to stop. And then I think, well, clearly something changes, because come the time of the actual Lord of the Rings, she just kind of like lets the Fellowship take control of the situation, right? So clearly in between she stops pursuing him so aggressively, unless, you know, she was a part of the first battle with Sauron, and after that she just kind of was like, oh no, it's dealt with.
which would be a bit ironic considering that's kind of what's happened at this
Yeah.
point at the beginning of Rings of Power, and she's like, no, it's not been dealt with. But yeah,
Exactly. So I'm a bit curious to see how that comes about, but the fact that she
sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, the fact that she comes back and she probably spends like however long searching for Sauron, and which I'm guessing probably isn't going to be too long because we're getting towards the actual Rings of Power being made, and Sauron has a large hand in that. You know, she probably lost the opportunity to go to the Undying Lands, and now has to spend the rest of her days like basically just living through all this turmoil and everything and handling all these problems. I feel like Elrond also probably saw her situation and maybe didn't want that for Arwen either.
Yeah, exactly. So again, it just adds so much weight to it. What I will say is, so Rings of Power is inspired not by the Silmarillion or The Unfinished Tales, which are the two big other books in Tolkien's works, but it's based on the appendices of Lord of the Rings, which are basically like short little anecdotes and short stories and such like, in which basically, for want of a better term, this is, well, it's not fan fiction, that feels diminutive of it, but it's not based directly on a story that Tolkien planned from A to B, but it is based on parts of stories. So things like the Forging of the Rings is laid out in the books, and so the show will cover that. Galadriel, I don't know whether she rejected the Undying Lands. From what I understand, she is not really actually expanded upon that much in the books beyond her physical appearance in Lord of the Rings. Like, there's not a lot more extra lore given to her, is my understanding. I'm just going to close that window because there's rain. So I don't think they expanded on it a lot, beyond, as I say, like her actual presence in the narrative of Lord of the Rings. So that means that they've got quite a lot of room to play. There is some mention of her being like one of the strongest elves in Middle Earth and being like a mighty elf, which the Rings of Power has interpreted as her being a mighty warrior, which some people seem very anti the idea that Galadriel could have been a mighty warrior. I'm like, dude, elves live for thousands of years. Elrond is shown to be a mighty warrior in the Lord of the Rings, and then isn't a mighty warrior by the actual events of Lord of the Rings, because he's now a nobleman sort of thing. So like, Galadriel can go down exactly the same journey, no problem. What's more, I think actually that's kind of part of the story they're going to tell in Rings of Power, is how Elrond, who is like not a lord of the elves at this point, he is like a is it consul? Is that what they call him in the first episode, I think?
Not too sure, really. I was trying to work it out.
So one of the women who approaches him when he's like writing the speech on the at the tree says like consul or something. So that he has a title, but he's not like high up in Elvish hierarchy, and he ends up being the Lord of Rivendell and being like an incredibly important figure. You have Galadriel, who currently is like one of the elves from the Undying Lands, who's hunting Sauron and hell-bent on it, and will end up being the Lady of Lothlorien. Like, there is going to be a transition of those characters, and I think that's part of what these 5 seasons that they are planning to do is going to tell us, how these characters that we know are going to come from where they are now to where we know them in the text, which I think that's a really fun idea. Like, I'm totally fine with them not being the characters they are yet, because that gives them room to change. If they were just the characters they were in Lord of the Rings, I'm like, cool, 5 seasons of this character that I already know being the character I already know. Like, that doesn't add anything to them. So like, I'm totally fine with them kind of going out on their own in that sense. And as I say, at the moment, things like Elrond trying to convince Galadriel to go to the Undying Lands, and then her choosing to reject that, and presumably later down the line Elrond discovering that she's rejected that and his reaction to that, adds weight to his conversations with Arwen, which is great. That's what prequels should do, is add weight and add depth to the source material. So yeah, I'm really enjoying that angle to it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with Galadriel being a warrior or anything like that, but as I said, the only thing that I'm curious about is how she goes from never going to stop looking for Sauron to, it's over.
Well, she does have one of the Rings of Power, though. So she's probably at some point going to gain that Ring of Power, and that might be the big turning point for her.
Yeah, maybe.
I will also say I don't think the Rings of Power are going to get forged this season. This season's 8 episodes. They've planned 5 seasons, I believe, and it's all been greenlit from my understanding. So we're going to get these 5 seasons regardless of whether the show's good or not. And I reckon we'll probably see the Tower be finished by this season, and then maybe the Rings next season. I might be wrong. Rings might be forged by the finale of this season, but like, it feels like if your story is the story of the downfall of elves, dwarves, and men, and Sauron's corruption of them, then the final end game of Sauron rising up and declaring war on Middle Earth again needs to come in pretty late, right? In season 5, I feel like.
I mean, Yeah, I
You
think
can't have
also
Sauron be
just
defeated in season 2 or something, can you? And then have 3 more seasons. Like, I don't know where the story goes from there.
yeah, and I mean like the sort of time span that it's been over the last couple of episodes, it does seem like it's going like there aren't any insane time jumps other than at the beginning, which is when, you know, it just goes
Which
into
is
the
a couple of
story.
thousand years, but then it's like, and then the next day, and the next day, sort of thing. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like just judging off of that, if he, you know, if the fact that Celebrimbor says it's like gonna take a workforce that even the High King couldn't uh provide, then yeah, I'd be a little bit shocked if they just randomly were like, "Oh, yeah, it's
And it's
all
done.
done."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I also
So
say that I fucking love? So I was very skeptical about the casting of Celebrimbor because I really like. I know that it's not canon and that lots of people dislike what it does with the lore, but I really like the portrayal of Celebrimbor in the Shadow of War, Shadow of Mordor games. So this guy who looks nothing like him and sounds nothing like that version of Celebrimbor, I was like, not sure I'm vibing with this interpretation of the character. But that line in episode 2 where he's like, I need the biggest workforce the world has ever seen, and the High King couldn't provide that, so he gave me you. I was just like, that's I like that line. That made me like this version of Celebrimbor just being like a little sassy bitch to Elrond.
I hope he isn't just like an actual dick though. That
No,
was one of the things I really didn't like about the ending of Shadow of War was that they just made Celebrimbor into a fucking asshole.
I mean, he probably is a fucking asshole, but I think that was supposed to be a little bit humorous as well. Like, I think that was him
Yeah.
making a joke at Elrond's expense, but also, like, being a little bit of a dick. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I really like the visuals. Obviously, it is the most expensive TV show ever made, so you'd hope you'd like the visuals, but, like, it looks great. I think the acting so far has been pretty solid. I really like this portrayal of Elrond. It's very, very different to Hugo Weaving's Elrond, but this is thousands of years before, but I just really like this character. Durin's great.
I feel like with Elrond, this is obviously before, like, any of the hard, like, when I say hardship, I mean, like, as you said, the downfall of literally all the races of Middle Earth.
He has had
You
quite
know?
a lot of awful shit happen to him already in the lore, but yeah, like
Yeah.
he hasn't been to war yet himself, I don't think.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, like, especially during that time with Isildur, because obviously they were like friends basically, and to see like the corruption slowly start and everything, like, especially after Isildur refuses to put the ring in Mount Doom, like, and then everything starts going to shit again, you can kind of understand why he may become more like cynical and
yeah.
like jaded, you know, in Lord of the Rings. So yeah, I think there's definitely, like, as you said, like loads of room for all these character developments and to add weight to their story in the future. So yeah, I'm reserving judgment for a lot of these characters.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously I know where they end up, so there's no point in judging right now because
We're
they are
5
going to have
seasons
to
away,
go
sort of
through.
thing.
Yeah, exactly. They are going to go through some character development, and if they don't, well, the show's going to be shit.
Yeah.
So, like,
So episode 1 ends on a big kind of reveal, and episode 2 explores this reveal a little bit with the stranger arriving, according to the subtitles.
it's Gandalf.
I don't think it's Gandalf.
It's Gandalf.
I don't think it's Gandalf.
You don't?
No.
You don't?
I reckon it's a May I think is how they're pronounced in Middle Earth. God, this is my level of Istari. That's the other name. I think it's an Istari, basically a wizard, but I don't think it's Gandalf. I think Gandalf's too obvious. They're definitely giving off Gandalf vibes, but I think Gandalf's too obvious. I think either a blue wizard, which are the first wizards to come to Middle Earth, and basically there's nothing known about them, so like perfect opportunity to just go wild. Radagast is a possibility because he is wearing a more kind of brownish robe at the moment and is interacting with wildlife. Or he could be evil, because I do like that they're playing with the is he good, is he evil thing.
The only reason I think it's Gandalf is because Gandalf is like the youngest of the wizards, and he was especially dispatched to Middle-earth to deal with the Sauron crisis.
In the third age, and we're still in the second age. So if it is Gandalf, that's a pretty big departure from the source material. Which, you know, it's their own adaptation. They can absolutely depart from the source material, but, like, Gandalf is not on Middle-earth canonically during the second age.
Oh, I didn't realize it was second age. I thought third age, like...
Third age begins with Isildur defeating Sauron, basically.
Right.
And Gandalf is dispatched to deal with the fact that the ring hasn't been destroyed, more or less, is my understanding. I could be wrong, but, like, my understanding is that all of the Astari, except for the Blue Wizards, are said to have arrived during the third age, rather than the second age, and this is set during the second age. But the Blue Wizards arrived during the second age, and also there is alleged Saruman might have arrived to do some reconnaissance earlier. Also, any of the Astari, you could just say, did some reconnaissance but didn't, like, start living on Middle-earth until the third age. So, like, it could be Gandalf visiting but not staying, sort of thing. But I just think Gandalf, as I said, I think they're intentionally leaning into the fact that people are going to think it's Gandalf with things like, there's a shot where he talks to, not Poppy, what's the other girl's name? The main girl. Nori. Like, when Nori approaches him, like, he turns around and, like, the screen gets dark, the trees start to, like, lean in. It's very like when Gandalf gets angry at Bilbo in Bag End and Fellowship of the Ring. And, like, that's an intentional camera technique calling back to Peter Jackson's trilogy. So that clearly visually trying, and he, like, whispers to the fireflies, like Gandalf whispers to the moth. So there's a lot of visual little winks to Peter Jackson's depiction of Gandalf. But I think that's all supposed to be misleading, is my theory. Or I'm wrong and they're being boring.
It could also be Gandalf because there was a dwarf named Nori. So he could also have, like, influenced that dwarf's naming process by just being, like, around the dwarves and being like, what's new with Nori? I
mean, look, they've already departed from Tolkien's lore a little bit because the Harfoots are not supposed to be in the second age either. So it absolutely could be Gandalf and they're just doing that bit out of sync, because again, it's their own adaptation. It's not one for one Tolkien's words to the screen. So, like, they can do what they want, and so it could be Gandalf. And if it is Gandalf, him being discovered by the Harfoots and being helped by the Harfoots would explain why he likes hobbits so much, because the hobbits are the descendants of the Harfoots. But yeah, I personally hope it's something more interesting than Gandalf, because Gandalf is the predictable option. And I think because I watched a video of someone theorizing some stuff, the coolest thing would be if he is evil, because they are dropping little hints that he's evil. But there's one thing that I think a lot of people have missed that this... hold on, let me find out the channel's name. I had it open earlier. Nerd of the Rings. That was the channel's name. Easy to find. Nerd of the Rings. They pointed out that in episode 1, when Galadriel and her forces are in that fortress in the north, one of the elves reaches up with his hand to the torch flame, says, it's so cold I can't feel my hand, and Galadriel responds, it's that this place is so evil that the flame gives off no warmth. And then later in that episode, so the same episode, Nori falls into the crater, her hands land on hot coals, and she says, it's not even warm. So, like, again, it could be them hinting because they're trying to mislead us one way or the other, but that one in particular feels like quite a strong, hey, you're supposed to pick up on the fact that flame not hot is bad. So, but also Galadriel could be wrong, could just be incredibly powerful magic, because Sauron, I don't think he's an Astari, but he's this. So Astari are a subsect of a species which I think are called the Maiai, but I might be wrong about that. But they're basically angels, and Sauron is the same species as Gandalf. He's just not a wizard. He's a sorcerer, for want of a better term.
Yeah, he's like a higher rank, basically.
Yeah, so, like, it could just be that, like, the magic doesn't give off warmth, which is something that's never been, as far as I know, addressed with Gandalf in Lord of the Rings or anything, but maybe. But I also think I'm seeing a lot of criticism online of the show. I mean, this show has been hated before it came out. Like, literally every trailer, you look at the comments, and it's all just, like, mean comments about either, oh, I loved when this character did this, but it's not actually a genuine comment. It's like, I loved when Gandalf met with Superman and said, look at me, I'm a pickle, or whatever. Those are the sorts of comments I'm seeing on a lot of the trailers. Or the other thing that I'm seeing a lot of is the quote from Tolkien, which is that evil cannot create, it only destroys what already exists. Which is supposed to be like, hey, Amazon are just destroying Lord of the Rings, which I think, you know, there's clearly a lot on the internet that want to hate this show, but without having seen it.
Yeah.
But one of the criticisms I'm seeing a lot is that the show doesn't care about the lore. And I'm like, look, it might not be the directors or showrunners making these decisions, but there is so much care put into, again, having watched this video of Lord of the Rings talking about it, things like when Galadriel and Elrond are talking in that like pathway where there's loads of statues of elves carved into the trees. There are trees that are like elves in the trees, which are deep cuts to Tolkien lore that they don't reference, they don't verbally talk about, but they're like deep cuts of like, this character has a dragon helm, so it's this particular elf. This elf has a dog next to them, which is a giant dog, so it's this particular elf. It's like, that's not done by people who don't give a shit. Like, even if that's just the set designers giving a shit, the set designers clearly give a shit, sort of thing. So, yeah, I think even if you don't end up liking it, it's clearly done by people who actually like Tolkien's world. It's not just a cash grab.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I mean, even if it doesn't stick directly to the lore, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I mean, it's the same thing with the movies. Like, and obviously Christopher Tolkien spouted some shit about how it was just made for like idiot kids. You know, like, and paid no respect to the beautiful storytelling or whatever. But I mean, as we've said, like, those books are a fucking slog to get through.
And
like,
the brilliance of them, real quick as well, is that they are perfect for a movie or TV show adaptation, because Tolkien writes 9 pages or so of description of Bag End. I don't need to know that much about Bag End, because we're never going to go back to Bag End. But for Peter Jackson, 9 pages of description of Bag End, that's great, sort of thing. And that takes 2 seconds of film to show us what Bag End looks like, sort of thing. So, yeah, you were saying, sorry.
And, you know, the fact with the movies is they made it more accessible, right? I mean, we talked about this before on one of the podcasts, in that, you know, like, the movies are kind of what people think of when you think Lord of the Rings first. And then you think, oh, yeah, they were based off of the books, you know? Like, that is just generally most people's thought process. Like, if you say, do you like Lord of the Rings, most people are going to assume that you're talking about the movies, probably. And I think that is a good thing, because it is a great world to explore. And if it can be accessed more easily by a wider audience, that in itself is a very good thing. You know, like, okay,
particularly
maybe
because it trickles down, right? Even if we say Lord of the Rings is a pretty difficult book to read, there is going to be a percentage, and it's probably going to be a fairly sizable percentage of people who watch the films and went, I'm going to read the books. I know I tried to. You presumably tried to read the books because you watched the films. And there is going to be then a percentage of those who don't find the books that difficult to read, or they manage to trudge through it and really enjoy the books. So, like, it's good.
Yeah.
Like,
and I feel like it's exactly the same with this show. Like, okay, maybe it isn't, you know, based on a full-length story like Lord of the Rings was, but the fact that it does take like snippets of lore from like the appendices and stuff, and like throws in a few new things, well, that just means that newer fans can appreciate it and actually get into it, because it's a story that, you know, is new for everyone, so they're kind of like on the same level. As well as for older fans that have seen the movies and maybe have read the books and everything, where they get a new Lord of the Rings story, you know, or like a Middle Earth story,
which will also
along
touch points with stories that they know, and potentially adapt stories that they know, but also tell its own story at the same time.
Exactly. So yeah, I just think it's like, it's just good for everyone basically. But you know, people are going to hate just for the sake of hating. Like, they just want to gatekeep, and they want to do that. That's their prerogative. But anyone that wants to watch it should, because just don't listen to people, including me. If you don't want to watch it, don't listen to me telling you to watch it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's one of those things with media discourse in general at the moment, and like I think what sucks is Star Wars. We've known that Star Wars' fandom has been like this for a long time. So like when new Star Wars things come out and people criticize it, I'm just like, so it's another day on Star Wars Twitter. Like it's whatever. But with Lord of the Rings, obviously the books ancient at this point. The films are 20 something years old. I think they were 20 years old last year, I want to say. The first one came out in 2001, so yeah, 20-year anniversary last year. And so the internet wasn't as prevalent back then. When The Hobbit came out, the internet still wasn't as bad as it is today, but also the discourse was pretty unified, which is like, it's a decent trilogy of films, but they're nowhere near as good as the book, and like it's over bloated and whatever, and like it's not as good as the Lord of the Rings. So like people were like, yeah, it's fun, but it's not as good as it could have been, sort of thing. And it's like, okay, that's fine. And there are probably plenty of people who really enjoy those films, so go for it. But this is like, now we're getting the Star Wars fandom, like the exact same sort of discourse. I'm just like, for some reason I thought you were better than this. But
yeah.
I can't remember the elf's name, but I'm really liking the elf ranger who's in the Southlands. I'm really liking their story. That sounds right, yeah. Like I'm really liking that story because that feels like it's like, ooh, what's going on? Particularly with the sun as well, with his smoke blade. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. Do you reckon he's going to become one of the first ring wraiths?
Who, Arondir or the sun?
The sun with the cursed blade, which looks a lot like a Morgul blade, right?
It does, but like I don't know. I hadn't really thought about the ring wraiths.
Because that's one of the other things I'm excited for, is that like we're gonna get to see the ring wraiths before they become ring wraiths, and that's gonna make the ring wraiths more tragic because they're people. The people who are cursed to live that life and like devoid of all humanity, and like that's going to be awesome to get attached to characters. And it's going to be like when you're about halfway through the Clone Wars and you're like, wait a second, I've just remembered how Clone Wars is inevitably going to end. It's going to be the same thing. You're going to be watching Rings of Power and you're like, I'm really attached to, oh wait a second.
Yeah. I don't know. I think maybe not, because obviously most of the ring wraiths, if not all of them, were the like humans and dwarves that were given the rings.
The humans. It's the 9 human kings
or
lords.
It's just the humans.
Yeah, the dwarves also get given rings, but they don't get turned into ring wraiths. I think they get corrupted in a similar way to the elves, but they're not turned into wraiths.
Maybe the kid is the Witch King of Angmar.
That's what some people have theorized. I mean, the thing is, from my memory, the ring wraiths are all either lords or kings. However, here's another theory crafting for you. We don't know who that kid's father is. The father disappeared, although people are thinking it might be the guy on the boat whose name is like Hogir or something.
I thought it was Arondir. I honestly thought he was the elf's kid.
No, because they haven't actually like started going out, the elf and the mother.
I don't know. I from what we saw, I kind of got the impression that he was stationed there for like 70 odd years.
Yeah, I don't think that they've done anything yet, though. I think they're starting to actually like properly start their relationship with holding hands and stuff.
Maybe. I mean,
it could be revealed, but I feel like they're setting up this kid's father to be some mystery. So people are theorizing it could be the man on the boat because he's also from the Southlands and has fled. In which case he could also be a king or whatever. But like, have the kid's father be a king, and then the kid's friend in the inn says that they're waiting for their king to return, which, unless that's supposed to mean Saramir? What the fuck is Saramir? Unless it's supposed to be Sauron or Morgoth, then who are they talking about? But it could be a man who was the king of the Southlands, and that could be the kid's father.
Maybe.
which
I
would make
mean,
him like
yeah.
royalty.
The only reason, well, it's not the only reason. I thought they were kind of like hinting towards it being Arondir's kid for kind of what I said. I feel like they have known each other in the past, and also like the kid is quite dark skinned,
Mm.
and also obviously he has a dislike towards elves, and obviously there's always that like one story beat in a lot of stories where it turns out actually the thing they hate is actually a lot closer to them than they first believed.
Name one story that does that.
I can't off the top of my head.
I was going to go with Star Wars.
Oh yeah, Star Wars. But yeah, like I just
It could be. I don't think that their relationship is. I think that basically their relationship, Arondir's and the mother, who I can't remember the name of either. I'm bad with names, and it's 2 episodes in. I'll get there. But I got the vibes that they're like the equivalent of high school crushing on each other right now.
yeah, maybe. But yeah, I don't know. It would be interesting if he did turn out to be a ring wraith, though.
Yeah.
I am wondering how much we're gonna get, because supposedly Isildur is gonna be in the series.
Yeah, he's played by the kid from Mr. Bean's Holiday.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember you saying now.
And he's probably going to be in next episode because we're going to Numenor, baby.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm curious how much we're actually going to see over the series of these characters and where they end up. Like, do you reckon it's going to end like just before? Actually, do you reckon we'll see the battle with Sauron?
I think we might potentially see it, but at the same time, we know how that fight goes, which doesn't necessarily mean we can't see it. But like, I'm wondering whether, you know, if their plan is for that to be the season 5 finale or whatever. I'm like, well, so it's a bit of a weird choice unless you're doing some other drama within that. Because, like, again, if you use the Clone Wars as an example, the Clone Wars, spoiler alert for season 7, ends in Order 66. So we already know kind of what's going to go down, but it's not Order 66 that we see in Revenge of the Sith. It's its own Order 66 story. So it's the galaxy event, but it's its own drama within that. So like, I don't know whether season 5 of Rings of Power's finale would be satisfying if it's just like, okay, we're going to see Elrond and Isildur and the armies of elves and men fighting off Sauron's army, and then Isildur has what's the sword's name? N something.
Oh, fuck.
The sword that was broken.
Yeah.
That I can't remember the name of, because I'm thinking Nazgul, but that's another name for Ringwraith, so it's not that. It's been a while since I've watched Lord of the Rings. I need to go back and watch it. Anyways, we'll see the sword get broken, and Isildur will cut, and then I don't know if that's how it happens in the book, so it might not be exactly how it happens in Peter Jackson's film. But anyways, he'll kill Sauron. He has the ring, and then he goes to drop it in Mount Doom, and then everyone's like, destroy it, and Isildur doesn't. It's like, okay, well, yeah, that could be a cool ending to see play out over an hour. But if that's all that we see in that hour, I'm like, well, I already know all that happens. You need to throw in extra elements, I guess. But yeah, I think that might be the season 5 finale, basically, in short. But I just assume that there'll be other stuff going on as well.
Yeah.
But who knows? Who knows? Sorry, go ahead.
Because I was going to say, like, if the kid does become a ring wraith, obviously he's going to have to grow up a bit first, right? So I'm wondering how much time they're going to cover in the series for that to happen. Well, perhaps.
Presumably, if we do end in that fight, that's still a couple of decades, right? Well, like at least like 10, 20 years, because Isildur grows up from being a young boy to being a king in that time. So, but yeah, either way, Anduril, also known as Narsil. So Anduril is the sword when Aragorn has it. Narsil is the sword when Elendil and Isildur have it. So, but yeah, as I say, I am enjoying it so far. I'm excited to see what comes. I think that they have paid quite a lot of attention to the lore. I think that they have got some cool stuff going on, like in terms of like theory crafting and stuff, and I'm just very, very excited to see what happens next.
Yeah, I will say, which I said to you off podcast, which is I thought the first episode had a very strong opening, and then towards the middle I got really bored, but then it picked up again towards the end, and then second episode I just thought was thoroughly entertaining. And I don't think it was necessarily just the show not being entertaining for that small dip in the first episode. I think it's just kind of something that happens with a lot of shows, which is they have a lot of story to set up, and so it was just kind of like exposition being thrown at us, like not exactly exposition, but obviously a lot of the characters talking about what they are doing and what they are going to do, so that we could then jump into the story in the second episode, which, like, yeah, I get, like, I understand it, like, it's worth it if the rest of the show is going to be as good as the second episode in my eyes.
Fun fact as well that I learned from Nerd of the Rings, the worm that appears in episode 2, which is like a big sea beast, Tolkien apparently called big sea beasts like that fish dragons, and I'm immensely disappointed in Amazon for not using that phrase and instead going with the worm. The fish dragon!
That would have sounded pretty dope.
Oh, one minor complaint about episode 2 though, like really minor complaint, and look, she's a smart tactician, she's a smart warrior, I feel like she'd be too smart to do this. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but my logic, if I was stuck on a raft in a storm, would not be to tie myself to the raft. Maybe, like, wrap some rope around my arm to the raft that I can quickly release and untangle from if I'm underwater. But tying myself to the raft, if the raft sinks, let alone part of it breaking off and going underwater, if the raft sinks, I am now tied to the thing sinking. Like, that just seems so not a good idea to me. When she started doing that, I was like, what the fuck? And then it went wrong. I went, well, yes, of course it went wrong. Like,
I mean, saying that, like, obviously she didn't really have any other option at the time, but, like, it's also probably not a great idea to, like, just jump into the middle of the ocean with no real way of knowing where you are or how far back it is, and your only form of transport is swimming.
yeah. I mean, she's an elf. She can probably go for a long time, but,
Yeah, I know, but, like, still, goddamn. Like,
yeah.
that's a choice.
Mm-hmm.
I think
But-
if
but
I was
that's how-
presented with
that's
that,
how-
I'd be like, I'm dying, lads.
But that's how big of a choice she made, is to swim for a couple of days, probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I thought as well. What was I gonna say? Well, I had some comment to make about the scene of transitioning to the Undying Lands, but I can't remember what it was now. But yeah, overall though, I think it's a good old time. I haven't watched any of House of Hot D. Sorry, I haven't watched any of Got Hot D. And I'm still not sure I'm going to, at least until the first season's like fully out, but it's getting like good reviews as well, so that's cool. I don't think you need to compare or compete the two against each other. I think they can like stand on their own two legs, but I do think it's really, really funny that HBO went, Rings of Power just released. Let's release Got Hot D's first episode for free on YouTube. Which apparently is no longer available in the UK, so thanks HBO for that. They did release it in the UK on YouTube, and then they took it down. But also, slight second thing, this just annoys me in general with YouTube's double standards. Why is it that YouTubers get into trouble for having things like swearing and gore and potentially partial nudity? But I'm going to go ahead and guess that Got Hot D has all of that in much more detail than a YouTuber could get away with, and they probably are still allowed to run ads on that video.
Probably.
It's like whenever YouTubers get in trouble for talking about some like war crime that's happened, and then Jimmy Fallon talks about it and gets to advertise on his video of it. It's just like, cool, thanks for the double standards, YouTube. But anyways, but yeah, I did think it was funny that was like the rebuttal to Rings of Power dropping was on the same day to just make the first episode free. I was like, okay, cool.
Just going back to the Undying Lands thing quickly, actually. I was saying to Tom as we were watching it, or maybe after, but like the people on the ship with them, the ones that like undress them and everything, are they also honored?
Yes.
And
they're just lucky.
They just got so like they just picked them out and they were like, look, if you like do the ceremony, you've got a one-way ticket to the Undying Lands, baby.
Yeah, I guess so. Like, because they did go to the Undying Lands, so
yeah. Like
that was the thing I was going to comment on in that scene, was that I thought it was very funny just because it felt very cliched and I couldn't think of the rationale behind it other than going into the cliche. Was the other elf, the dude who's being a little bit antagonistic to Galadriel throughout the episode, going, "Take my hand, Galadriel! Take my hand!" And you're doing like these close-up shots of him, close-up shots of her, close-up shots of his hand. I'm like, why does she need to take your hand? Like,
yeah.
is that part of the ceremony? Because I didn't see any of the other elves holding each other's hands as they went through. Is it just because like they have a connection and he wants to hold her hand? Like, it just felt it felt incredibly like dramatic, and like if she didn't hold his hand, there was no way she could go to the Undying Lands. But I was like, that hasn't been established.
Yeah. Imagine them like holding hands, just like reaching out, and then they like just go through the veil, and they're still just sailing, and they're just like.
That was a bit overdramatic, wasn't it? Jorin or whatever your name is.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I liked it.
Yeah.
I'm excited for more.
Definitely excited for more. I think the biggest thing that I can compliment it on, and I said this to you guys when I dropped in the Discord after having watched the first episode, not realizing the second episode was also out, was it felt like Middle-earth to me, in the sense of immediately I went, I want to go watch Lord of the Rings films. I kind of want to go play the Shadow of War and Shadow of Mordor games. Like, I kind of just want to immerse myself back into this world that I haven't really dabbled with in a while. That's just a good feeling to have, of just being like, ooh, this feels familiar, this feels good. It felt like, this might be a bit of a comparison to make on a podcast, it felt a bit like watching The Force Awakens for the first time, where you're like, haven't had any new Star Wars content for ages, and suddenly you're like, oh man, I forgot how much I fucking love Star Wars and want to just immerse myself in Star Wars again. It was the same sort of feeling of just like, yeah, this is good. And also, it made me think something that I thought a lot when I was under 10 years old, which is just, dude, people wearing capes or cloaks with swords, it's just fucking cool, isn't it? It's just cool. Like,
Yeah.
like, obviously it's cool. I play fantasy games, I play D&D, but just like, it's really fucking cool. Swords and cloaks are just like peak cool.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's my review of Rings of Power.
But yeah, that's the only thing I've watched, so on to you.
I watched the latest episode of She-Hulk. It was fine. The particular running joke that they have in this episode to do with Megan Thee Stallion, I haven't listened to any of her music. Don't really know her as an artist, other than I know she's immensely popular. So a lot of those jokes kind of fell flat for me, but that's fine. It doesn't have to be made. Like, not all of it has to be made for me. So I didn't mind those jokes. They just, as I say, didn't land for me personally, which is totally fine. I'm still very scared of what's to come with Matt Murdock, though, because I do think this show's tone is very, very different to what I'm used to with Matt. Not necessarily a bad tone, but it might be a bad tone if they make Matt that tone as well. So, also, did you hear we can't talk about this for too long, but did you hear there's a rumor that Punisher, Luke Cage, and Jessica Jones are all confirmed for Born Again? There's a new rumor, but not Iron Fist.
I have not heard this rumor, and I will also not engage with it because I'll just get excited and then be really disappointed when it isn't true.
Fair.
So until I see it's confirmed by Marvel that Punisher's coming back, I will not get excited.
Fair. And the final thing I've consumed is Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which I mentioned earlier, so I won't talk too much about it, but I've been replaying that, or not replaying it, carrying on playing it after like a year off of it. It's most of the issues are fixed that I was having, and I'm really enjoying it again. Yeah, it's a good old time.
Oh, actually, speaking of games, I have been playing a bit of Final Fantasy 14.
Disgusting. Also, you mean critically acclaimed MMORPG Final Fantasy 14?
Yes, and I've tried it a couple of times before, and I just really didn't enjoy it. And Tom and Samo were both pestering me to play it again, and I just kept saying no because I really just didn't enjoy it. I don't think you should have to play through like hours and hours of a game before you finally reach a point where it becomes good. And yeah, like I just wasn't gonna do that. They were pestering me, and so Pete, not Pete, sorry, Tom, uh, Tom kind of like,
It's alright, you're just giving me permission to Photoshop Tom's face into my face on the thumbnail.
true. Tom kind of buttered me up a little bit because he was telling me about like this RP event that was going on, like his friend owns a nightclub in game or something, and it was like grand opening and like, you know, and he made it sound really cool. And so I was like, all right, maybe I'll, you know, just log back in, just go and see that, right? And I did. It was fun. Like I understand why other people like it. I'm like obviously we play D&D, so I'm no like stranger to role playing, but I just it's so weird to do in a different game that I don't really know how to interact with people on. Um, and I basically did the exact same thing in that game that I have done many a time in real life at real nightclubs, which is stand in the corner by myself or sat down by myself. So in that regard, it's very realistic role play. And yeah, it was okay. Like I did a few funny things, or at least what I thought were funny. Like most of the time when you're RPing, you have to rely on like the emotes in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And all of these other people in the nightclub, they had like all these different emotes that I haven't unlocked or purchased, most of which are like different dance moves. And when you purchase those particular dance emotes, they like you can just click it once and it will just like continue going, like you don't have to refresh it or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But because I only have the default one, it ends after like a few seconds, so you have to keep clicking it. And I was getting bored just doing this because that's fucking boring, right?
You're
And
really selling me on this game, by the way.
yeah, well, I'm gonna get onto it in a minute, but I like would just stand there pressing like the same emote over and over again, and then every once in a while, I'd like just hit a different emote. So there's like a prayer one or something, or pay your respects, which is basically the character just doing this. And I was like, this is a perfect move to finish off my dance. So I'd like be dancing, and then like, you know how like someone goes like scene, you know, I was just dancing, and then I'd just be like, and that was the most fun I had, which isn't saying a lot at all.
I mean, you
And
reminded
then,
me
like-
of my best RP experience in an MMO ever, which was when I was playing SWTOR with you and Callum ages ago, and because I think you were the one leading the session, so you were the only one who could interact with all the cutscenes that we were doing. So me and Callum just had to wait outside of your cutscenes, and so I would just activate my emote of sitting on something looking bored while you were in your cutscene. And then when you'd get out, I'd stand back up and continue moving.
yeah, emotes can be fun. And then like when I was just really bored and just done with it, I was dancing and then I just like cheered and it just looked like so strange. I'm the only one in this like nightclub full of people with everyone else dancing with just me waving my arms in the air. And then as soon as that finished, I just turned on my heel and just walked out of the establishment. and, and after that, I was like, okay, so I've done that now. Like maybe I'll actually give playing the game another go. Like I've got it installed now, I might as well. I also like changed my character's appearance and everything. So I was like, all right, well, I'll just make the most of this. So I started trying to play it. And with most games, when I get angry, it's usually surface level anger. You know, like I might shout and rant and whatever. Like, you know, Callum and Tom were saying the other day about how like my angry outbursts when we're playing games and stuff are like some of the funniest they've seen. And like, yeah, I kind of put on a bit of a show, you know, like I'm just venting. But then I'll just kind of like drop it and move on. I'll probably just continue playing the game, you know, because I don't actually hate what I'm playing or whatever. It's just a moment of frustration.
Mm.
Playing Final Fantasy for at least like the first maybe hour or two when I got back into it, because I have been playing it since, so I can just power level to 50 and get some cool shit. But playing for that first hour or two, I felt a cold, deep, pit of my stomach fury. Something I've never experienced with a game like that before. And it's so strange to me because it wasn't like anything. It wasn't like I was trying to fight a boss and I was dying constantly or anything. It was literally just playing the game. Like, I was having to do this quest line where I would be being sent back and forth between one quest giver and this one particular area. Like, I'd have to speak to them, they tell me to do this quest, I run over to this area, I complete it, I run back, I talk to them, they send me to the same area again, complete the quest, run back. And I was like, oh my god, this is so fucking boring.
Do you find, I find with a lot of MMOs, one thing that infuriates me, not to the point of cold rage, as you put it, but just like, it just irritates me, and SWTOR particularly does this, it's just like, why are you making me travel for 30 seconds on foot when you could make it 10 seconds on foot? Like, and it's things like, you need to go and talk to this person in this building, and I'm like, cool, and I get into the building, it's like, they're on the other side of the building rather than in a room on my left or something. I'm just like, look, I get that you spent a lot of time designing this environment, but it takes me 30 seconds to run through the Senate Hall, and I don't give a shit when it's my 50th time doing it.
Yeah.
Cool, okay, I'm glad I'm not alone in that.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. But like, I feel like with most MMOs, it isn't as bad as what I felt with Final Fantasy, and I'll tell you why. It's because at this point I was bored, sure, and I was getting irritated, but I wasn't absolutely furious as I would be when I finished this area. I finished the area and I was like, finally I get to go and do something else, hopefully some better quests, whatever. And they send me like way across the map to speak to someone, and I'm like, okay, this is going to be in my next questing area, whatever.
Then they send you
I
back?
get there. No, I get there. I speak to this one person, and then they send me even further across the map to speak to one person. And then they send me back. At this point, I was like, what is this? Like, this isn't playing a game. I'm not getting anything from this. I'm literally talking to a person and running. This is a waste of my time, again, which isn't saying much. I barely do anything in my spare time. Like, if I have a day off or something and you ask me at the end of the day what I did, chances are I won't be able to tell you. That's how boring my days are, because I just put things off, and I just can't be bothered to do anything.
Just
Like,
letting that stab wound fester. Just
yeah, I am a terminal P something. What's the word? No, it's not P, is it?
I know what you're talking about. God,
Procrastinator.
Yes,
Yeah,
Jesus.
I'm a terminal procrastinator, and so yeah, like most of the day, I'll just kind of sit there thinking, what am I gonna do, without actually doing anything, just because I simply can't be bothered. So my time really isn't worth much, simply put. But this game made me feel like I was wasting my time.
But the thing is, your time is worth something in the sense of, even if you are someone who doesn't do anything and just like plays video games or watches TV or whatever, it's like, if you're playing something that's a waste of your time, you're like, I could be doing something moderately better with my time, like playing a better game sort of thing.
Exactly. And that's what I felt. I was like, why am I doing this? This isn't fun. I'm torturing myself with the hope that it gets better.
But I just want to point something out. You described yourself as having a cold rage towards this game. Like something you'd never experienced before. That cold rage should be projected at Samo and Tomo. Samo and Tomo. I did that again. I did that yesterday during Star Wars Leviathan. It's their ship name is Tomo. You should be projecting that at Tomo, the combined unit, because they're the ones who got you into it again.
Well, I did tell him at the time that I was absolutely fucking furious.
Good,
and honestly,
but just like, start being angry with them, and then when they ask why, just be like, "You got me back into Final Fantasy XIV."
But like, honestly, this is so stupid, but it happened, and this is how bad I was at, because, like, honestly, I do want to like the game, because I have seen some of the stuff that you can do later on, and it does seem enjoyable. But, like, getting there is just so aggravating. And it got to a point where I legitimately went onto YouTube and searched, how do you enjoy Final Fantasy XIV? And like,
okay.
A couple of hours after that, when I'd calmed down. But by the way, like, as soon as I like got sent back that final time, I quit. Like, I just Alt F4. Like, it was over for me. And like a couple of hours later, when I calmed down, I messaged Tom, and I like sent him a screenshot of my YouTube result from like 2 hours earlier. And I was like, how? Like, what is this game making me do, man? And do you know what the worst part is?
You're still
I've been playing it.
Yeah.
I'm still fucking playing it.
But this is the funny thing, is I genuinely feel like I feel a moderate version, like a very minuscule version of how you feel about MMOs in general, where I'm like, yeah, I'm not sure whether I'm enjoying it this much. Like, even SWTOR, I'm like, I don't really enjoy the gameplay that much. I mean, Bounty Hunter, when I started playing Bounty Hunter, I was like, oh, this is actually fairly fun compared to Jedi Knight. It's still not that fun compared to most other video games, I would say. But I enjoy the story at the very least, so I just try and, like, avoid all enemies when I'm on a mission, and then I'm like, oh, I'm 3 levels below what I need to be for the next level. Fuck. And but I'm like, part of me's really, really worried that, like, when I played the Star Citizen Alpha, I think, first of all, full disclosure, I think Star Citizen is a complicated project, shall we say, in the sense of I am worried that it will never come out properly because they keep on adding stuff to it rather than just finishing what they've got. And I do think that there's a lot of criticism you can levy at that game, which is valid. At the same time, whenever I play the alpha, whenever I like update it and boot up the latest version, I always have a good time. Asterix. But I'm also like, I'm not very good at this game. Like, I've tried to do one combat mission against AI. I walked into a room, instantly got shot in the head and died and got put back on the other side of a planet. And I was like, oh, that's quite a big reset for literally one guy getting a lucky shot on me. Like, you'd think a multiplayer game that's not really inherently against players necessarily would be a little bit more forgiving than one shot, one kill. So I'm like, and I'm not like great at ship combat either. I'm fine, but not amazing. And I'm just like, I don't know if this game ever does come out in full. It sounds like my dream game on paper, but I'm not particularly good at it yet. will I enjoy it? I might
Mm.
really not enjoy it, and that will fucking suck, because I've
Yeah.
like followed it since 2012. Jesus Christ, I've followed it since it's been 10 years. Okay. just came to that realization when saying that. Pretty sure they announced the Kickstarter in 2012. If 2012, what 2012 if memory serves. But yeah, so yeah, I'm definitely a little bit worried about that. Where I reckon if I get a good crew together that I enjoy playing with, it doesn't matter if I'm not great, as long as I've got you to carry me in combat and someone else to carry me in flying, and I can just be the captain and just give orders.
I honestly feel like I've experienced that with a few games. I think namely one of them is Tarkov, Escape from Tarkov. Like I watch quite a lot of gameplay of it. Like I watch the YouTubers Aqua FPS and General Sam, and they play it quite frequently, especially Aqua FPS is mainly what he plays. And I've played it, and I still love the idea of the game. It looks amazing to me. Like it just looks so fun. But whenever I've played it, I'm so bad at it that I just can't play it for long.
Mm.
And because of that, I don't get good at it to
Mhm.
enjoy it that extra bit more. And that really sucks. Because I really want to enjoy it because it looks amazing, but like I just can't. And it's one of those things where it's like, is it worth actually putting more time into the game when I don't enjoy it in hopes that eventually I will?
I
It's the same thing with Final Fantasy. It's like, well, I hope that I enjoy it when I eventually get to this point that I'm like idolizing in my brain. But like, what if I don't? What if I have literally just wasted so many hours on a game that I just don't enjoy? That's heartbreaking.
I think I had a similar relationship with the Souls games, which is like, I was like, I really appreciate these. I think I'd really enjoy them if I could just get over the hurdle of not enjoying them. And eventually I just went, these are just never going to be for me. Like, theoretically, if I lost the Piston Cup and was forced to play through all of Elden Ring, I might come out the other side enjoying it because I've been forced to play it to the point of getting okay at it. But at the moment, I really don't fucking enjoy my experience, and it's not worth me putting in the hours to. I'll just admire it from a distance and be like, I appreciate you in concept. But yeah. Anyway,
That was a lot of weight off my shoulders.
and that is the podcast. We're going for another 3 hours.
Oh god.
I
feel
didn't think...
like all the good shit happened towards the end.
Yeah, for us, we get better with time, baby. Maybe we need to start throwing that in at the beginning. It's like, if you're not enjoying this, keep watching. We get better.
I feel like we need to just jump like straight into the podcast without doing the introduction or anything, and then around the maybe like
Middle
2 hour mark we do the introduction, and then that's when we hit our stride, and then we just relocate the ending to the beginning.
I would like it if we can get the podcast back down to 2 hours though. So maybe not record the intro at the 2 hour mark. Maybe record the intro at the hour and a half mark. I would like this podcast to start coming down in time. Like I'm pretty sure the first episode's like an hour and 20 minutes, and then we're frequently hitting 3 hours now. It's just
Yeah.
But we have so much to say.
I mean, we tried to stop that by introducing like actual topics that we want to talk about, and it just hasn't happened. Like, in fact, it just made it worse because
Maybe
we
we need
talked
to
about so many topics. Like,
maybe we need to stop talking about topics and just wing it. But I think, to be fair, part of it is that we just like talking to each other, which is a nice thing.
Yeah.
But it means that like your anecdote about counselling, that might have been, I don't know how long it was. That might have been 10 minutes, might have been 20 minutes. It could have been half an hour for all I fucking know. It was an engaging bit of conversation. But also, like, if it was closer to half an hour, it's like, podcast could have been 2.5 hours without that.
Yeah.
But also, it was a good bit of conversation. But, you know, those bits aren't on the topics bit. So when we're going, oh, we've only got 3 topics to talk about, and then we throw in stuff like that, it's like, yeah.
Yeah.
And then media consumed, it was like, Alex, you went, oh, I've only watched Rings of Power. We then talked about Rings of Power for like, I don't know, half an hour. And then you talked about Final Fantasy 14 for like 15 minutes or something.
Yeah. Yeah, we need to try and bring it down. We'll have to come up with some plans on how to do that, maybe.
Maybe I just need to put a timer on that 2 hours I do,
Shut the cyber fuck up, you gunk, and listen to the Higgledy Piggledy podcast.
and we just cut it there and end.
Yeah, that's our USP. Like, it's just a 2-hour time limit, and
Every
if we're
time.
halfway through a conversation, well, get fucked.
And also, if we ever get to the point where we have less than 2 hours worth of stuff to say, we'll just have to keep on recording until we hit the 2 hour mark, and it's just like, all right, thanks. I'm gonna go play Final Fantasy 14 and rage at my computer, and I'll be like, okay, cool. I'll go make some naps. All right, we done?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you everyone for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you didn't mind the politics 2 minutes in. I know that felt like a lifetime ago, but that's, you know, this is a podcast made for elves, okay? For elves, 3 hours isn't that long, so, you know.
That's like a millisecond in their time.
I did like real quick on the Rings of Power bit though, the little bit of like the 20 years being like a blink to Elrond, but at the same time I did think to myself, don't dwarves live for like over 100 years in Middle Earth? So, like, it's still a long time for them, but it's not the same as it would be for a human 20 years sort of thing. But I guess a lot of stuff happened in that 20 years. But
yeah.
But anyways, yeah, thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed. If you like this podcast, then you can like it. If you don't like this podcast, just keep watching. We will get better in time. We're stopping this podcast, and there will be a hard reset next episode where we're back to being shit again at the beginning. But we'll get better about 2 hours in. So like, just keep watching. Comment, share, subscribe. I don't know if I already said that one.
It's an important one, so it's worth repeating anyway.
Print out an A4 like print screen of our channel page, and cut out the latest video, which is this video you're watching right now, and put it in a physical folder on your desk that's got a little sticky label on it that says favorites. Just put a little cut out of the thumbnail in there, and come back next time we do this. I would say next week, but that's not a guarantee with us, so
We'll try though.
same place, maybe a similar sort of time.
Yes. Goodbye, my friends.
Thank you for watching the
Higgledy Piggledy podcast.
Thank you, Claptrap.
Hey, you recognize that one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna click stop recording now. Bye bye.
Bye.